The train screeched into Redfern Crossing at high noon, its iron wheels shrieking like some wounded animal forced to halt in the middle of nowhere. Heat wavered above the dusty platform, bending the air until even the silhouette of the single telegraph pole seemed to sway. Drunkenly. Marigold. Bennett pressed a gloved hand to her swollen belly and murmured to the restless twins within, promising, pleading for just a little more patience. It had taken 13 rattling hours to crawl west from St. Louis, and every mile had hammered a finality into her bones. There would be no turning back. She was 21, twice widowed by circumstance, first by the fever that claimed her father, and then by the debts that claimed the farm. She carried twins fathered by a man she'd trusted, a man who fled the very night she whispered the news. A single trunk, a carpet bag, and a folded advertisement tucked near her heart were all that tethered her to any kind of future. The paper promised a new beginning. Seeking God, fearing wife, must be of strong constitution and gentle temperament. Comfortable lodgings provided. Contact Mr. Jeremiah Blackwell, Redfern Crossing, Wyoming Territory. His letters, 6 in all, each one neat, steady, compassionate, had spoken of wide skies and wheat fields that rolled like the ocean. But the photographs he enclosed were of livestock and a distant homestead, never of himself. That omission had unsettled her at first. Poverty, however, had a way of smothering doubt beneath desperation. Now, standing alone while passengers dispersed to waiting wagons, Marigold was forced to swallow the bitter truth of her gamble. She lifted her chin, brushed back a stray curl darkened by sweat, and stepped onto the parched boards. The instant her boots struck wood, a hush rippled through the depot. 3 ranch hands paused mid-argument. 2 elderly ladies stopped fanning themselves, and a freckled boy balancing parcels on a barrow forgot he was meant to keep walking. Their gazes slid from her rounded belly to the gold ring that glimmered on her left hand. An inheritance from her mother, not a pledge from any man, and skepticism flashed like heat lightning. "Ma'am?" The station master, a narrow fellow, in a sun-bleached vest, approached with an awkward tip of his bowler. "Can I assist you with your luggage? I've only the trunk and the bag." Marigold's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm to be met by Mr. Jeremiah Blackwell." Recognition flickered in the man's eyes, followed swiftly by something she couldn't name. Pity? Alarm? He cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett." She held his look until he ducked his head. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm afraid Mr. Blackwell ain't been into town for nearly 2 weeks. Fact is, no one's seen him since the first day of the cattle auction." The words struck like a mallet. The platform tilted. She caught the railing and forced air back into her lungs, one shallow draft at a time. "Not now," she warned the twisting heft beneath her corset. "Please, little loves, not now." A dusty wind barreled down the street, scattering grit and gossip alike. From somewhere deeper in town came the lonely bark of a stray dog, then silence thick as wool. Marigold straightened, every muscle trembling with refusal to break. Surely someone can send word to his ranch. The station master's gaze flicked over her shoulder. "If you'll excuse me, baseline duties and such." He retreated before she could protest, dissolving into the station's shadowed interior. The platform emptied. The noon train exhaled one last gust of scorching steam and rattled out toward Laramie, leaving Marigold Bennett marooned beneath an anvil sky. Dr. Leland March watched the stranger from the porch of his infirmary. Across the street, he had been setting fresh linens in the sun, but forgot them entirely once the young woman stepped onto the boards. Something about her posture, the fragile defiance in the line of her shoulders, the practiced calm with which she consoled the unborn, pulled at him harder than duty usually did. 2 years earlier, Leland had buried his wife and newborn son in the cottonwood grove behind the whitewashed church. Since then he had stitched bullet wounds, delivered calves, and set broken ribs all across Redfern, yet he had never quite mended the fracture in his own spirit. The town called him Doc with fond casualness, but when the oil lamp guttered, low at night, he was nothing but a widower learning how to breathe 1 hour at a time. Instinct stirred now. That old physician's instinct braided with an ache far older. He crossed the dirt road, had brim shading pale eyes, and spoke before doubting courage could rein him in. "Good afternoon, ma'am. You look in need of water and shade." The stranger, Mrs. Bennet, he guessed, turned. Sweat glimmered at her temple, and though her smile was polite, her pupils were blown wide with exhaustion. "That obvious?" she asked, trying for wry. "I'm afraid so." Leland offered his arm. "My infirmary is just there. Cooler than this skillet of a platform. We can locate Mr. Blackwell afterward." For a heartbeat, pride warred with pragmatism in her gaze. Then a cramp flittered across her expression, so swift most would miss it. But he was trained to see subtleties of pain. "Thank you," she whispered, slipping her hand onto his sleeve. The gesture was feather light, yet the trust behind. It weighed on him like a vow. The infirmary smelled of lavender and carbolic soap. Marigold sank onto a chaise by the open window, where a shy breeze offered respite. Dr. March poured cool well water into a tin cup, but before he could press it into her palms, she doubled forward, the cup clattering against the floorboards. A ripple traveled across her abdomen, an unmistakable wave. Leland knelt, hands poised inches from her shoulders, waiting for permission. "Braxton Hicks," she panted. "They've plagued me since Nebraska." He counted her breaths, measured the flush in her cheeks. "How far apart?" "Too random to time." She tried to laugh. It came out cracked. "I promise, doctor, I'm not going to fool on your rug. I'd sooner you did here than on that platform." He offered the water again. This time she drank. "Rest. I'll send my apprentice after Jeremiah Blackwell." At the name, something like guilt tightened his chest, and irrational jealousy fought down before it could shame him. He scribbled a note for Jonas, the teen who swept floors and delivered medicines, instructing him to ride toward the Blackwell ranch. When Jonas left, Leland returned to find Marigold tracing the rim of her cup with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she said softly. "Most men look at me like I'm an inconvenience they didn't order. I'm a doctor. Inconveniences keep the lights burning." Her smile faltered. "And yet I sense charity isn't why you helped." He swallowed. "No, charity had little to do with it." A hush settled, heavy with words unsaid. Outside the window, a dust devil pirouetted down Main Street, scattering biscuit wrappers and stray feathers from the feed store. The silence grew until Leland feared his heartbeats might betray him. Finally she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Does the church in town frown on mail-order brides?" "Most churches frown on anything that hints at desperation." "That's much of the world, then." She set the cup aside and clasped her hands over her stomach. "I never intended to be an object lesson in morality. I only wanted somewhere my children could grow without shame." He crouched, careful to keep his tone purely professional, though his pulse did reckless things. "This territory is harsh, Mrs. Bennet, but not cruel beyond redemption. We will find Jeremiah." She met his gaze, and for a breath, Leland March glimpsed the oceanic sorrow she carried. Words rose unbidden. "I will be what you need. If you let me. He crushed them before sound. Jonas returned at dusk, horse-lathered, dust caked in his eyebrows. "Doc, Mrs. There's no sign of Jeremiah. Place looks abandoned weeks, maybe. Longer. Stock gone, windows boarded." Marigold closed her eyes. The infirmary lantern hissed as flame met fresh oil, and she thought the sound eerily similar to hope deflating. Then he lied. "Or something happened," Leland countered. Gently, but even he heard the hollowness in the defense. Word spread by nightfall. Redfern Crossing was the kind of settlement where rumors bloomed faster than prairie weeds. A mail-order bride left stranded. Carrying twins begot out of wedlock, claimant missing. Some whispered Jeremiah had joined the buffalo hunters heading north. Others insisted he'd been shot in a card game. A few suggested darker possibilities involving debt and rope. None offered comfort. Marigold remained in the infirmary's spare room where Leland's late wife once sewed blankets. He slept in his office chair 3 nights running, under the guise of monitoring contractions that never quite ripened into labor. In truth, he lingered for reasons medicine could not name. On the 4th dawn, while he changed the bandage on a rancher's sprained wrist, Sheriff Otis Burwell arrived. The sheriff's mustache drooped from humidity and perpetual disappointment. He offered a curt nod to Leland, then removed his hat as he addressed Marigold. "Ma'am, the council's concluded Jeremiah Blackwell ain't returning any time soon. It's improper for a single lady, especially in your state, to lodge under Dr. March's roof." Blood surged in Leland's ears. "Sheriff, town ordinance." Burwell tapped folded parchment against his thigh. "She must be placed with the Thornberry ladies or escorted on the next train east." Marigold's knuckles whitened over her belly. Thornberry twins, with their comically high collars and moral certitude sharper than butcher knives, had driven 3 new families from Redfern for lesser offenses. She felt the babies shift as though they sensed threat. Leland stepped forward. "There may be a third option." The words came without conscious thought, perhaps born of sleepless nights. Listening to the whisper of her breathing across the hall. "I am a widower, Sheriff. Nothing in ordinance forbids remarriage." Burwell's brows shot up. "You proposing, Doc?" Leland turned to Marigold, heart hammering. He dropped to one knee, not dramatic flourish but necessity. Kneeling helped him breathe. "Mrs. Bennett, Marigold, would you consent to marry me?" The room seemed to contract around them. Beneath disbelief glimmered something fierce and fragile, hope's first unfurling. Yet before she could speak, thunder rolled. In the street outside, though the sky showed no clouds. Heavy hoofbeats followed, too many for honest ranch hands, too fast for travelers easing into town. Sheriff Burwell pushed the door wide. A column of riders advanced, dust plume boiling behind. At their lead rode Cyrus Blackwell, Jeremiah's elder brother, face scorched by wind and grievance, Spencer repeating rifle slung casual across his saddle. 20 gunmen fanned out in his wake. "Leland," the sheriff muttered, dropping hand to revolver. "This is bad company." Cyrus reined to a halt outside the infirmary. His gaze landed on the window where Marigold now stood, skeletal fear lighting her features. He tipped his hat and called, voice smooth as gun oil. "Evening, Doc. I've come for what my brother paid for." Leland stepped beside her. "Your brother is missing, Cyrus, possibly dead. Then his claim falls to me." Cyrus's grin widened, revealing a solitary gold tooth. "And I aim to collect woman, babes. Land what's left of it. Hand her over, and there'll be no quarrel." Marigold's pulse thundered in her ears. She pressed one hand to the pain, the other to the twins who kicked as if to flee. Shame and terror collided inside her chest, but outrage blazed brighter. She had traveled 1,000 miles to escape being claimed like livestock, and she would not surrender on the threshold of salvation. She drew her breath, thick with iodine and dust, and spoke out the open window so every cowardly soul within earshot would hear. "I am not property. Jeremiah forfeited his rights the day he abandoned me. If you step across this sill, Mr. Blackwell, you'll discover exactly how fiercely a mother can defend her children." Cyrus laughed, a rotten sound. "The law is on my side, sweetheart." Sheriff Burwell answered before Leland could. "Territorial law says no contract stands if entered under false representation, and no man owns another human." The riders rumbled restless. Cyrus spat. "Law's as good as the men willing to uphold it, Sheriff." He counted her breaths, measured the flush in her cheeks. "How far apart?" "Too random to time." She tried to laugh. It came out cracked. "I promise, Doctor, I'm not going to fool on your rug." I'd sooner you did here than on that platform. He offered the water again. This time she drank. Rest. I'll send my apprentice after Jeremiah Blackwell. At the name, something like guilt tightened his chest, and irrational jealousy fought down before it could shame him. He scribbled a note for Jonas, the teen who swept floors and delivered medicines, instructing him to ride toward the Blackwell ranch. When Jonas left, Leland returned to find Marigold tracing the rim of her cup with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she said softly. "Most men look at me like I'm an inconvenience they didn't order. I'm a doctor. Inconveniences keep the lights burning." Her smile faltered. "And yet I sense charity isn't why you helped." He swallowed. "No, charity had little to do with it." A hush settled, heavy with words unsaid. Outside the window, a dust devil pirouetted down Main Street, scattering biscuit wrappers and stray feathers from the feed store. The silence grew until Leland feared his heartbeats might betray him. Finally she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Does the church in town frown on mail-order brides?" "Most churches frown on anything that hints at desperation." "That's much of the world, then." She set the cup aside and clasped her hands over her stomach. "I never intended to be an object lesson in morality. I only wanted somewhere my children could grow without shame." He crouched, careful to keep his tone purely professional, though his pulse did reckless things. "This territory is harsh, Mrs. Bennet, but not cruel beyond redemption. We will find Jeremiah." She met his gaze, and for a breath, Leland March glimpsed the oceanic sorrow she carried. Words rose unbidden. "I will be what you need. If you let me. He crushed them before sound. Jonas returned at dusk, horse-lathered, dust caked in his eyebrows. "Doc misses there's no sign of Jeremiah. Place looks abandoned weeks, maybe. Longer. Stock gone, windows boarded." Marigold closed her eyes. The infirmary lantern hissed as flame met fresh oil, and she thought the sound eerily similar to hope deflating. Then he lied. "Or something happened," Leland countered. Gently, but even he heard the hollowness in the defense. Word spread by nightfall. Redfern Crossing was the kind of settlement where rumors bloomed faster than prairie weeds. A mail-order bride left stranded. Carrying twins begot out of wedlock, claimant missing. Some whispered Jeremiah had joined the buffalo hunters heading north. Others insisted he'd been shot in a card game. A few suggested darker possibilities involving debt and rope. None offered comfort. Marigold remained in the infirmary spare room where Leland's late wife once sewed blankets. He slept in his office chair 3 nights running, under the guise of monitoring contractions that never quite ripened into labor. In truth, he lingered for reasons medicine could not name. On the 4th dawn, while he changed the bandage on a rancher's sprained wrist, Sheriff Otis Burwell arrived. The sheriff's mustache drooped from humidity and perpetual disappointment. He offered a curt nod to Leland, then removed his hat as he addressed Marigold. And the world held its breath. The door burst inward on the 3rd kick, hinges screaming, boards splintering like dry bone. Gun smoke rolled into the infirmary in a churning gray tide, carrying with it the stench of lamp oil and the metallic tang of dust knocked loose from rafters. Dr. Leland March did not see the first assailant's face, only the glint of a revolver's cylinder, turning as the intruder swept the barrel across the room. Marigold Bennet saw everything. She saw Sheriff Burwell's duster flare as he dove behind an iron-clad apothecary chest, saw the crimson sparks skitter from plaster where bullets struck, saw the way Cyrus Blackwell's silhouette filled the porch like a thunderhead, rifle held loose, confident, hungry. Above all, she saw the promise in Leland's eyes. "I will bring these children into the world as their father." That promise was the only light strong enough to cleave the smoke. Pain claimed her again, deeper than before, folding her nearly double. But she had no breath to scream, only to steady her shaking hands around the butt of the sheriff's spare revolver. Inside her, the twin surged in counter rhythm to each contraction, as if urging her to fight or flee anything but freeze. Second gunman leapt over the threshold, boot heels landing with an echo that rattled glazing. Too eager, too sure. Marigold's barrel tracked him before consciousness could object. She squeezed once, twice. Flame belched. The recoil bruised her palms, lanced through her wrists. The gunman jerked sideways, hat spinning, shoulder erupting in a wet spray. He crashed into a cabinet of tinctures that shattered in a glittering wash of glass and PNNYROY. Cyrus roared, "Alive, you fools!" But the admonition drowned beneath new volleys. Burwell returned fire from his crouch. The muzzle flashes painted strobing images on the walls. Leland sprinting toward Marigold with a basin of boiled water. Another Blackwell brigand crumpling against the windowsill. A jar of quinine exploding in a pale green mist. Marigold's contraction eased. Terror receded just enough for shame to creep in. She had shot a stranger and felt nothing but relief. "I will reckon with that later," she vowed. Throat raw from powder, Leland vaulted the barricade trunk, nearly sliding on spilled laudanum. "How close apart?" He shouted over the gunfire. "Minutes, maybe less," she gasped. Sweat drenched her collar. The cotton clung like wet parchment. "Then we start now." He flung a blood-speckled blanket across her knees and unfolded a leather roll of gleaming instruments. "Remember your breathing." Another bullet tore through the door jamb, splitting the frame. A wood shard clipped Leland's cheek, tracing a crimson bead down the stubble of his jaw. He ignored it, fingers moving with surgeon's precision while chaos thundered inches away. The first Blackwell she'd shot groaned, trying to crawl. Burwell kicked the man's pistol aside and cuffed him with iron borrowed from Leland's supply of obstetric clamps. "Stay down or bleed out. It's your call," the sheriff barked. Cyrus's voice boomed through the porch. "Stand fast. You yellow bellies. The woman's worth 500 cash to the man who drags her out." A hush, then boots scraped, and Marigold felt dread blossom anew. Money turned cowards into wolves. Leland caught her panic. "Look at me, not them," he instructed, his voice suddenly the only steady sound in the room. "Listen for when I count. In 2, 3, out 2. 3. She matched him breath for breath, the cadence carving order from Pandemonium. Outside the infirmary a different tension simmered. Word of Cyrus Blackwell's arrival spread faster than wildfire on buffalo grass. Townsfolk peered from curtained windows, weighing risks against conscience. Pastor Everett clasped his Bible so hard the leather creaked, then stepped onto the dusty street with a tremor in his knees. The widow Chun, who ran the laundry, unlocked her door and ushered bleary-eyed lodgers into the alley, arming them with flat irons and broom poles. On the far end of Maine, the Thornberry sisters debated scripture and propriety until shooting started again. Then Prudence Thornberry snatched the family bird gun from its mantle and announced, "I believe God's will includes buckshot." By twilight, a motley barricade took shape, ranch hands wielding branding irons, teenagers with slings, old Mr. Whitlow hunched behind his wheeled chair brandishing a cavalry saber likely older than the Union itself. They did not advance on the Vons infirmary, but they formed a line across the road, a ragged wall of ordinary courage. Cyrus Blackwell noticed. He spat a ribbon of chew into the dust. "I don't recall inviting a congregation." Pastor Everett took one shaky step forward. "You'll find no welcome here for violence, Mr. Blackwell." Cyrus's laughter carried like broken glass. "Then I'll take hospitality by force." He signaled to his remaining riders, 8 hardened men, who began to fan out, rifles lowering to the improvised crowd. Marigold's scream knifed through the evening just then, a raw crescendo that silenced both sides. Behind the barricade, Mrs. Whitlow whispered, "Lord, be with her." Inside, Leland felt the room tilt as her pain peaked. He braced her shoulders, voice a tether. "First baby's crowning. You're doing perfectly. Sheriff Burwell's revolver clicked empty. He ducked behind the apothecary and reloaded with trembling fingers. Doc, we can't hold forever. They're regrouping. Hold 30 minutes. Leland replied, not looking up. Give me 30, and you'll have a new miracle to threaten them with. Burwell huffed a mirthless laugh and snapped the cylinder shut. Miracle or not, I'd settle for cavalry. The gunfire tapered. Cyrus must be conserving ammunition, but tension climbed like mercury. Plaster dust floated through sunlight slats, sparkling over Leland's instruments. He guided Marigold's push, watching dark curls emerge into his. Waiting hands. Lightning flickered outside, though clouds had yet to gather. The baby slipped free with a rush of fluid. A heartbeat later, a thin, indignant cry split the air, loud enough to bounce off broken walls. Marigold sobbed relief. Leland's own vision blurred. He laid the wet infant on her stomach, tiny face crumpled, fists thrashing, and severed the cord with shaking scissors. A daughter. Perfect, alive. Leland pressed his forehead to Marigold's damp hair. One safe, one more to fight for. The lull lasted seconds. Cyrus's voice barged in again. You deliver that whelp, Doc. Call this over before someone sets fire to the place. Burwell shouted back, back off, or the next body you bury'll be your own. Cyrus fired a shot for punctuation. The bullet punched through the roof, sending rafters groaning. A splinter fell, grazing Burwell's ear. Blood trickled. Damnation, the sheriff hissed. Marigold's second contraction rolled like thunder. Leland barely had time to wrap the newborn in linen before bracing for the next. The second twin presented breach. Alarm bells rang in his head. Marigold, breathe exactly when I say. Will. Need finesse. Sweat plastered her curls. Her eyes were glassy with fatigue, but determination burned. Tell me. He maneuvered deftly, coaxing legs free, turning the baby with practiced grip. Outside, increases in shouting signaled fresh escalation. The townsfolk's barricade must be failing. Then a single unearthly note floated in from the street, a kotu. Low, resonant hum, rising into a hymn. Pastor Everett had begun singing, Be Still My Soul, a trembling baritone that quavered but did not break. Others joined, the laundry lodgers, the Thornbury sisters, ranch hands who knew none of the words but hummed anyway. The hymn wound through gun smoke like a silver thread, settling on Marigold's heaving shoulders. Her tears joined blood and sweat, but the push that followed carried a strength no bullet could match. The second twin entered the world, a boy, red-faced and bellowing, kicking as if ready to chase off every gunman east of Cheyenne. Leland wept openly, washing him clean, tying the cord. He was half laugh and half sob when he placed the son beside his sister. You did it, he whispered. You all did. A whoop of joy escaped Burwell before another bullet shattered the window above his head, showering him with shards. Ack! Doc, if you've any further miracles, now'd be swell. Leland swaddled the twins and passed them into Marigold's arms. He stood, spine clicking, and strode to the doorway as if walking into church. Burwell hissed, Are you mad? Probably. Leland hefted a white bedsheet, tied it to his walking stick, and marched onto the porch under the impromptu flag of truce. Smoke stung his eyes. His knees wobbled, but he spoke with unfaltering clarity. Cyrus Blackwell, he called. Lay down your arms. Your brother's children are born, healthy, and free. Any further hostility makes you a murderer twice over. Cyrus stepped into view, rifle leveled. A fine speech, Doc. One problem, no proof. Leland's heart hobbled. Reveal the newborns and risk stray fire? He opened his mouth to stall, but a slender figure eased beside him. Prudence Thornbury, cheeks streaked with ash, bird gun cocked. She whispered, Show them truth, and dare them to defy heaven. He nodded slow. Marigold, he called. Over his shoulder, "May I?" Within the doorway she knelt, cradling her children in trembling arms. Every instinct screamed to shield them, but another voice, fierce and maternal, urged her to end this siege forever. She rose. Footsteps sticky with blood led her to the threshold. The chorus outside hushed. Townsfolk parted. Cyrus lowered his rifle inch by inch, gaze snagging on the swaddles. "Twins," he murmured, face unreadable. "One boy, one girl." Leland confirmed, standing between Marigold and Cyrus where any bullet would have to pass through him first. "Each with claim to your brother's name, but not to your cruelty." Whispers rippled through the riders behind Cyrus. Even hired guns felt the gravity of newborn cries. The hymn resumed, softer now, weaving lullaby beneath the twilights. "Hush." Sheriff Burwell, weapon raised but eyes gentle, addressed the outlaw. "Lay down arms, Cyrus. You fire again, and every rifle on this street drops you. You stop now, you face a judge, maybe ride home alive." Cyrus's jaw worked. Sweat cut rivers through dust on his temples. He looked from the twins to the townsfolk, to his dwindling posse. At last his rifle barrel dipped. Fingers uncurled, the weapon thudded harmless into dirt. One by one his riders followed suit, guns clattering like hail on a tin roof. Leland exhaled. His knees buckled, but Burwell caught him. The sheriff secured irons on Cyrus's wrists with the finality of a church. Bell tolling midnight. Pastor Everett stepped forward, voice raw with relief. "Let's get these babes and their mother inside, away from the chill." The townsfolk drifted nearer, offering water, blankets, whispered congratulations. The Thornberry sisters crossed themselves, Prudence quietly slipping cartridges back into her apron pocket. The barricade dissolved into communal care. Violence transmuted into fellowship by lantern light. Marigold reclined in a fresh-turned bed beneath the infirmary's front window now, patched with paper where glass once glittered. The twins suckled contentedly, tiny fists clutching linen. Leland sat on the footstool, exhaustion drawing crags beneath his eyes, but sunlight of a gentler kind warmed his expression. "You risked everything," Marigold murmured, stroking the daughter's downy cheek. "For me, I risk nothing I wouldn't gladly for family." The word hung between them, first utterance of a fragile dream. "But I did promise choice." She looked at him fully then, cataloging his nervous swallow, the half-lidded hope. "I was promised captivity once already. I'll not trade one jailer's ring for another." He flinched, nodded. "I understand." Her touch found his hand. "But you are not captivity, Leland. You are deliverance. Ask me again when the fever of tonight has cooled." He smiled, a dawn breaking behind tired eyes. "Tomorrow, then." Sheriff Burwell escorted Cyrus and his men to the brick jail at the edge of town. The night deepened, stars crowding overhead like curious witnesses. In the bunkhouse where riders were locked, Cyrus stared through bars at the sky he might never taste free again. The deputy, a quiet Paiute man named Eli, sat outside the cell rolling cigarettes. Cyrus cleared his throat. "Any word from Cheyenne on Jeremiah?" Eli scrutinized his lighter. "Telegram says Jeremiah died 6 weeks ago in a boarding house fire. Body found with whiskey bottle and a charred picture of a woman." Cyrus closed his eyes. Even in death you leave ruin, he thought. Bitterness, curdling guilt. "Tell the doctor. Tell him I'm sorry." Eli grunted, the kind of sound that meant maybe. Toward dawn Marigold finally slept. Leland sat at the edge of the bed, keeping vigil. His mind drifted over the night, the hymn, the gunfire, the first gasp of his daughter, the determined kick of his son. He stroked a lock of Marigold's hair, marveling that he felt peace instead of the usual pulse of grief. Burwell tapped the doorframe. "Stage leaves for Laramie at noon. Taking Cyrus to territorial court. Thought you'd want the news." Leland nodded. "Thank you," the sheriff lingered. "Town's raising funds to rebuild your front wall." I'm grateful. But it can wait. My patients come first. His eyes softened on the sleeping trio. Burwell cleared his throat. There's talk at council of asking you to run for mayor once you're wed. That coaxed a laugh. I haven't yet convinced the lady to stay, much less wed. After tonight? She'd be fooled to refuse. Burwell's smile faded. But fools are often the ones we love. He tipped his hat and left. Late morning found Leland washing bandages in the yard's copper basin. The sun stretched high, cicadas tuning for midday heat. Jonas trotted up, breathless, waving a telegram. From Cheyenne, Doc Urgent. Leland wiped his hands, unfolded the paper. Lines leapt at him. Greater than ***, Smithson and O'Neill rail agents. Report greater than suspected case of hemorrhagic fever. Eastbound. Greater than stop all incoming trains until further notice. His stomach dropped. The noon stage would leave, but rail lines were quarantined. Supplies, medicine, mail, everything Redfern relied upon would halt. And hemorrhagic fever could get a town faster than wildfire. He looked toward the infirmary where Marigold slept, unaware of the storm brewing. His jaw set. He had fought gunmen for her safety. Now he must battle disease for the town's survival. Jonas, he said, mind already drafting protocols. Tell Burwell to bar the rail yard. Fetch Everett, we'll need the church for triage. And send runners, no one enters or leaves Redfern until I say. Jonas's eyes widened. Yes, sir. He sprinted off. Leland gazed at the tawny horizon. Only yesterday the sky looked boundless with possibility. Today it looked like a lid sealing them into a crucible. Inside the infirmary Marigold stirred. Sensing change even in sleep. The twins whimper Ed. He whispered to no one. Let tomorrow be gentle. A distant whistle floated on the wind, an eastbound train ignoring the quarantine order, its iron heart barreling toward Redfern full of unknown. Passengers, unknown fever. And the world held its breath. Again. The whistle keened thin, mournful, floating across the baked flats like a lament for souls not yet lost. It wove through Redfern's chatter and hammered against Marigold Bennett's skull, dragging her from exhausted half-sleep. Instinct, honed on a Missouri farm and sharpened by the night's violence, told her that sound meant danger. She sat bolt upright, jostling the twins at her breast. Their tiny mouths popped free, each releasing a squeak of protest. She hurried to settle. Them whispering apologies. The room smelled of lye scrubbed wood and lavender sachets the Thornberry sisters had insisted on tucking near the cradle. But beneath the pleasant scents lurked iodine, powder smoke, and the iron tang of dried blood that no amount of scrubbing had fully erased. Hemorrhagic fever. Words from Leland's late-night briefing crawled across her memory like red ants. Something about quarantines, about shutting the line. She had drifted in and out of consciousness while he spoke, his voice a soothing drone as he dabbed her forehead. Now the full meaning crashed over her, that eastbound train hurtling toward. Town might be an engine of plague. Another whistle blast dashed closer. She rose carefully, easing the babies into the wicker cot. Rosamond and Caleb, they had decided after the dawn feeding, names spoken in hushed wonder. Rosamond's eyelids fluttered, blue veins tracing delicate maps beneath translucent skin. Caleb snorted and resumed nursing on empty air, dreams already eager for another meal. Marigold's heart squeezed at the sight. 2 days ago she had stood alone on a platform with nothing but hope and desperation. Now 2 fragile lives depended on her strength. A heavier footfall approached. Leland appeared in the doorway, shirt sleeves rolled, stethoscope bouncing against his collarbone. He smelled of coal smoke and sweat. Hollow crescents shadowed his eyes. I didn't mean to wake you, he said, voice rasped raw by 24 hours of command. The train did that. She replied, adjusting the shawl around her shoulders. Milk stains dotted the woolproof. She was already losing the battle to stay presentable. I heard the warning last night. But you said you sent riders to flag it down? He raked fingers through tawny hair. Jonas and Eli set torches on the eastern grade, but the engineer claims orders to push through at all costs. Railway brass leaning on bonuses, I wager. They slowed at the barricade long enough to toss a mail sack and a single passenger, then throttled wide open west. Marigold blinked. A single passenger? A nurse from Illinois, Leland answered, lips thinning. Says her name is Winifred Clark. Claims she treated the first cluster back east. The company paid her to accompany every train, clearing cars of the sick between stops. Got above. She shivered despite the heat. Burwell placed her under guard. At the church. She insists she's uninfected, but I'll run assays. He crossed the room, gaze drifting to the sleeping twins. A soft smile flickered Hope's pilot light. Then duty doused it. We need the back room for triage. Typhus and scarlet you can wrangle in isolation, but hemorrhagic. He didn't finish. Marigold clutched her elbows. Tell me what to do. First rest. He lifted her chin gently. I need you strong. Second, can you milk enough this afternoon to bottle? If the fever breaks loose, we'll have orphaned infants needing colostrum. That thought punched air from her lungs. Orphaned. The image of Redfern, littered with tiny coffins, flashed. She nodded, swallowing bile. I'll start at once. Before he could reply, the church bell clanged 3 urgent strikes, Burwell's signal for council. Leland squeezed Marigold's hand, then vanished, leaving the room smelling of wind and worry. Council convened in the half-rebuilt saloon because its shattered walls allowed cross breezes strong enough to dispel contagion, at least. That was Doc March's logic. Boards still bore bullet holes and tar paper patches, and sun slanted through gaps like blades. Representatives perched on stools rescued from the cellar. Pastor Everett. Sheriff Burwell nursing a stitched ear. Prudence and Patience Thornberry. Rancher Lou Sabatini, Widow Chun. And old Whitlow dozing in his chair. Leland stood at the bar. Cyrus Blackwell's confiscated ledger, open like courtroom evidence. Papers, telegrams, medical notes, quarantine edicts fanned across planks scarred by last night's gunfire. Hemorrhagic fever, he began, watching the news ripple. Incubation uncertain, reports say 2 to 6 days. Mortality anywhere from 30 to 60%. Spread by bodily fluid, possibly by fleas. He rapped the counter. Rule 1. Isolation. No one leaves or enters Redfern until we're clear. Lou Sabatini slapped his hat against a thigh. My herd's due to drive east. In 4 days. Delay means ruin. Ruin beats burial, Prudence Thornberry replied, voice like ice chips. Burwell cut through. Doc's word stands. Any cowpoke challenges the line. He'll bunk in the jail with Cyrus, no exceptions. That jail's already brimming, Widow Chun noted. Guarding Blackwell's men pulls deputies from rail. Her tone held no criticism. Only grim arithmetic. Eli and Jonas are posting color banners outside town, white for clear houses, red for sick, Leland said. Volunteers to patrol streets will rotate. Pastor, we need the sanctuary stripped pews outside, straw on floors. For cots. Everett nodded, clutching his Bible like a lifeline. We shall serve, Leland's gaze snagged on Prudence Thornberry. I need you and Patience to organize food rationing. Fever patients require broth, citrus if we can coax it from Sabatini's. Stores. Prudence bristled at taking orders but inclined her head. God's work is often dull before it's glorious. We'll manage. Patience flashed a meek smile behind Pants and Nez. A commotion at the doorway halted discussion. Deputy Eli shouldered. Through one arm supporting a staggering Winifred Clark, the nurse's face shone waxen. Copper coins of sweat mottled her brow. Doc, she collapsed outside church, Eli reported. Leland vaulted stools and caught Winifred as her knees buckled. He pressed fingers to her pulse thready. A red stain blossomed across her starched cuff, too bright for simple sweat. God forgive. U.S., Prudence whispered. The plague's here. Marigold sat by the cradle, massaging tender breasts to coax milk into a porcelain bowl. Each pull added a pearl-white drip, but memory of Leland's request, bottle for orphans, threatened to sour her efforts. She inhaled, focusing on Rosamond's sleeping face, on Caleb's slow rhythmic breathing. Asterisk, they need me steady. They need tomorrow. Asterisk footsteps sounded. She expected Leland, but instead found Cyrus Blackwell standing in the doorway. Shackles gleaming, Eli's revolver barrel nudging his spine. Marigold's heart jolted. The sight of the man who'd besieged her, home less than a day earlier, filled her with cold fire. Doc wants him cleaned, Eli said. Less risk of staff in the jail. He kept weapon raised but stepped back, granting Marigold space to flee if she wished. Cyrus kept gaze on the twins. A muscle feathered in his jaw. I won't harm them, he said, voice gravel thick. Marigold's glare could have etched marble. You tried murdering their mother before they drew first breath. Tried reclaiming what my brother bought, he corrected, tone flat. Not the same, but not right either. Chains clinked as he shifted. I came to ask forgiveness. The words seemed to blister his tongue. She stared, incredulous. Rage flared behind her ribs, but something unexpected surfaced. Pity. His eyes, once hard, now carried ruinous sorrow. Mr. Blackwell, she said slowly, forgiveness isn't mine to grant. You owe that to Rosamond and Caleb, to every neighbor, whose home you shattered. She paused. Earn it by living differently, if they let you live at all. She turned away, resuming her task though her hands trembled. Cyrus's shoulders sagged. Eli nudged him towards the wash basin. When they left, Marigold finally exhaled. A teardrop splashed into the milk, vanishing without trace. Winifred Clark's sweat glistened under lanterns in the infirmary's back room, a scorched fever sheen. Leland sponged her arms with carbolic water, eyes cataloging each petechial bloom, each crimson seep. Doc, Sheriff Burwell hovered outside the threshold, mask of gauze covering nose and mouth. She's bleeding through pores, Leland answered, voice low. Classic onset. Winifred's lids fluttered. Quarantine, days ago. Conductor bribed. Wouldn't stop. Blood rimmed her gums. Leland swallowed the taste of bile. Rest now, he signaled Jonas, who handed morphine. Leland administered enough to dull agony without hastening death. Winifred's grip tightened on his wrist. Stop, the trains. Burn the linens. She slipped into opiate twilight. Leland stripped his gloves and scrubbed with lies so fiercely. His knuckles bled. He pictured Marigold's milk bowl, the infants' suckling mouths, each delicate vessel that disease could shatter, and fear clawed him deeper than any bullet. Red banners bloomed on houses by dusk. First the boarding house where Winifred had stood. Next, Widow Kemp's home after she reported nosebleeds. Then the stable boy who'd helped unload the mail sack. Marigold watched through the infirmary window, braiding dread into hair still matted from labor. She had bottled 2 pints of milk, but every fill felt like bailing an ocean with a thimble. Rosamond fussed. Marigold lifted her, inhaling newborn scent milk, talc, faint iodine. Outside, horse hooves drummed, the stage to Laramie departing with Cyrus and his men, heavily guarded. One pestilence leaving, another arriving. She rocked Rosamond slowly. Lord, build fortress walls around this child. The door opened. Leland's shoulders drooped under invisible yoke. Marigold read the verdict in his eyes. The nurse? She asked. Gone. His voice cracked once, then steadied. We burned her bedding, sealed the room. He collapsed onto the rocker opposite her. First patients appear within 12 hours, she said. She was right. Marigold's throat worked. How many? 6 red flags so far. Might double by morning, he rubbed temples. We'll separate the healthy at the church, the sick in hotel. But we'll need help. He lifted weary eyes. Will you command the healthy ward? Teach women to sterilize, feed broth, comfort? They'll listen to you. His gaze drifted to the infants. I'll move you across the street, second-story room. Less risk. She set Rosamond back in the cot beside Caleb. You leave my children with sick and dying? Never. She rose, spine straight. They stay with me. If you're exposed, you risk them. His whisper quivered. If others care for them while I labor, they risk everyone. She touched his cheek. We fight together or not at all. He sagged into her palm. Then I teach you everything tonight. The world shrank to pulses of suffering. By dawn, 9 red banners. By noon, 17. The church's hollow sanctuary filled with the wounded of gunfire, converted to patients numbed by fever. Leland moved between wards, coat stiff with dried bleach. Marigold donned Thornberry-stitched masks, showing townswomen how to boil cloth, how to rotate cool compresses. Pastor Everett read scripture from a distance, voice hoarse but steadfast. Jonas collapsed after 36 hours, replaced by ranch boys pressed into courier duty. Drums of fuel burned outside for sterilizing waste. Sabatini's cattle bawled from empty troughs because half the ranch hands were quarantined. Hunger gnawed the town as fiercely as plague. Marigold felt her milk fade by the third day, stress strangling supply. She prayed over bowls, coaxed drops from chapped nipples, cried privately when output dwindled. Caleb's cheeks hollowed. Rosamond's cry lost vigor. Leland noticed. He brewed barley water, mashed peaches from the chun pantry, improvised droppers from quills. Still, the twins weakened. Despair perched on Marigold's shoulder. On the 5th morning, Prudence Thornberry barged into the infirmary, cheeks crimson. With suppressed outrage, "Doc!" Leland emerged, stethoscope clattering. "Can't spare a moment," Ely's coughing blood. "Patience has fainted twice," Prudence snapped. "And she stopped, biting lip. Then, voice small, "I am bleeding, not woman's bleeding." Tears gathered. "What do we do?" Leland swallowed. 3 more red banners. "Go home. Boil everything. I'll send Jonas." But Jonas had collapsed. He pressed a jug of diluted carbolic into her hands. "Prudence," he murmured, "we need faith, but also obedience. Bark orders from your porch. Touch no one. I'll come." She nodded, face a lost child's, and fled. He turned, found Marigold in the hallway, eyes shining with fear. "If it reaches Thornberry House, containment's hopeless," she whispered. He squeezed her arm. "We keep fighting." But his voice sounded ground down. Night-cloaked town in silence, broken only by coughs, moans, hoarse snorts. Marigold patrolled rows of cots, lantern in hand, checking pulses. Widow Chun slept fitfully, cheeks ashen. Lou Sabatini muttered delirium. Cattle. Fences. Water. Pastor Everett knelt near the altar, repeating Psalm 91 till words blurred. She lifted the lamp to a corner bed and froze. Sheriff Burwell lay motionless, blankets dark with fresh blood. He had hidden symptoms beneath bravado. Fear stabbed her without him. Law collapsed. She hurried to fetch Leland. He arrived with iodine, but one glance told him outcome. He enlisted Marigold to elevate Burwell's head, to bathe clotted beard. The sheriff's eyes fluttered open. "Doc, told you." "Get cavalry," he rasped. "Cavalry's you, Bob," Leland whispered. "And we're holding." He signaled for water. Marigold cradled Burwell's head. The sheriff managed a thin smile at her. "Little lady, tougher than all my deputies." Blood bubbled at his lips. He tried to speak again, coughed. A crimson mist fanned across Marigold's sleeve. Instinct screamed to recoil, but compassion anchored her. She wiped his chin, murmuring, "Thanks for his courage." Burwell's grip slackened. Leland closed the man's eyes. Marigold pressed a cloth to her own mouth, heart fracturing. Outside, thunder rumbled, a storm building after weeks of heat, as if sky itself prepared to weep. Dawn brought rain and a new terror. Jonas burst into the infirmary, face gray. Doc train car on the siding, they left freight, rats everywhere. Rats vectors for fleas. Leland's blood hammered. Show me. He shoved through doors into drenching downpour. At the siding, a lone boxcar squatted, padlock broken. Grain sacks spilled onto mud, swarming with rodents. Some lay dead, blooded. Others scurried. Eli stood nearby, shotgun in shaking hands, eyes fever bright. Tried burning them, he muttered. A fleck of red clung to his lip. Leland cursed softly. Rain spread everything. Urine, feces, fleas. Jonas torched the car. Eli sit. But Eli swayed, then collapsed, shotgun clattering. Jonas fetched lit torches. Leland helped drag Eli up the bank toward church. Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning lit the rail yard as Jonas hurled flames into grain. Fire blossomed orange, then blue as spilled kerosene caught. Rats shrieked and darted. Rain sizzled on Inferno. Marigold saw the flames from infirmary porch, twin bundles pressed to chest. The sky churned above rail yard, firelight licking thunderheads. She whispered, "Lord, guard him." Caleb whimpered, breastfeeding scarce yield. Rosamond's eyelids looked bruised, dark. Marigold's pulse hammered. Milk is gone. They will starve. She remembered a childhood trick. Goat's milk diluted warms calmer than cows. Sabatini's property still held nanny goats. If they still live. She strode into rain, shoving. Fear aside. The goat pen behind Sabatini's livery reeked, but 2 nannies bleated under awning. Marigold lashed them with twine into a makeshift halter, calves cramping from exertion 4 days after childbirth. Lightning forked as she led animals down muddy lane toward infirmary. Halfway, a figure emerged from alley. Cyrus Blackwell jail. Chains absent, wrists rubbed raw. Rain plastered hair to his skull. "Pen broke in storm," he said before she could ask. "I'm not running," he lifted palms. "I saw you walking. Thought you might need help." She eyed his bruised temples, the pleading. "Posture. You know goats? Bottle-fed Jeremiah once when mother died." She hesitated, then passed him the lead. They hurried, thunder rolling like artillery. At infirmary porch, Cyrus tethered goats as Leland stumbled up carrying Eli, face streaked with soot and rain. He froze at sight of escaped outlaw helping his wife. To be. Cyrus met his glare. "Lock me up later, Doc. Right now, feed your kids." He vanished into downpour before Leland could reply. Hours blurred. Sabatini, delirious, died. Widow Chun rallied. Eli hovered. Prudence Thornberry slipped into coma. Patience wept bedside, voice cracking through hymns. Rosamond and Caleb suckled tepid goat's milk from cloth-wrapped spoons, their color steadied. Marigold's shoulders unclenched fraction by fraction. At sunset, the rain ceased, revealing streets washed clean of dust and of townsfolk. Only a handful remained unstricken. Leland, red-eyed, leaned against doorway. "We're at precipice," he murmured. "If next wave hits, we're done." Marigold took his hand. "Then we pray wave breaks." They turned toward nursery to sleep in shifts. Thunder woke her before dawn, not sky-born, but from the rail. Another whistle, shriller than first, cut morning hush. Marigold lurched upright. Caleb slept at her chest. Rosamond rested near. She slipped to window. Headlamp glowed down track westbound express. She could make out silhouettes atop the engine, men waving lanterns frantic. The train slowed, squealing. Then a figure leapt off, running toward town square. Minutes later, Leland burst in. "They carry serum," he gasped. "Army surgeons from Fort Russell. They heard wire before lines cut. Experimental inoculation, small supply, but maybe enough to tip scales." His face lit with ragged hope. We might save them, Mari. She clasped. His cheeks kissed salt-wet skin. In that instant fatigue lifted, replaced by molten purpose. He pressed foreheads together. Marry me today before next battle. She laughed a cracked, joyous sound and whispered, after rounds. But new screams rose outside, panic pitched higher than fever moans. Marigold rushed to porch. Riders galloped from East Ridge dust. Devils in dawn light carrying rifles and a black banner scrawled with a white skull. Scavenger gang locusts smelling weakness. Leland's voice tightened. We're besieged again, and this time our lawman's gone. Marigold looked at twins, at goats, at column of smoke still drifting over torched boxcar, at serum crate glinting on rail platform. Her pulse pounded like war drums. Asterisk, this story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Asterisk, the riders fanned into town hollering. Somewhere a window shattered. A woman screamed. Leland dashed to gather revolver abandoned after Burwell's death. Cyrus Blackwell stepped onto Main Street, coat torn from jailbreak, chains still shackled to ankles but broken from wall. He lifted a shotgun liberated from deputy's office and faced incoming riders alone. Marigold felt history tilt. Villain offered chance at redemption. She whispered, earn it now. Then she scooped twins, cradled them close, and marched into morning light, ready to defend hope once more. And the world held its breath, waiting to see if love could master plague and violence alike. Cyrus Blackwell stepped into the rutted street like a man waking from a decade-long nightmare. Dawn bruised the eastern sky. Smearing ember rose across thundercloud remnants, and wind carried the sour, sweet reek of scorched grain from the torched boxcar. His borrowed shotgun felt heavier than guilt, but he held it chest high and pumped the Ferend once, chambering a shell with metallic finality. The scavenger gang crested the ridge in a loose chevron. 12 riders, lean and sun-baked, their horses' ribs showing from weeks of raiding drought, struck settlements. Their leader, a giant wearing a steeple-crowned hat and a vest flayed from jackrabbit pelts, waved a battered repeating carbine overhead. At his hip swayed a bleached skull, small as a child's, tied by rawhide strips, a macabre standard that earned them the name. Skullsmen from every terrified rail worker across 200 miles. Redfern's Main Street lay nearly deserted, except for Cyrus, Leland March scrambling onto the infirmary porch, and Marigold Bennett halfway down the boardwalk, twins swaddled tight against her chest. Behind shuttered windows, weary survivors peeked out, faces wan from hunger and fever but alight with fresh dread. The serum crate, a steel braced, strongbox stamped U.S. Army Medical Corps, remained on the rail platform outside the depot, exactly where the soldiers had hefted it before the express thundered west again. Those soldiers didn't wait. They feared quarantine orders and the plague rumor swirling down the line. They had tossed the box, saluted, and vanished into sunrise steam. Now the Skullsman had spied its gleam. Asterisk, they'll come for medicine first, then livestock, then anyone who breathes. Asterisk, Cyrus thought. His guts twisted with memory. Jeremy's casual cruelty, the Blackwell gang's reign, his own complicity. This was reckoning. He inhaled, tasting wood smoke and goat musk drifting from the infirmary pens. The lead rider Vestman hauled on. Reins yards from Cyrus. Hooves churned dust, sending orange plumes curling like dragon breath. The bandit grinned, gold tooth glinting. Well, look at here, boys. Ain't that a Blackwell? Thought the law hauled you off yesterday. Chains still manacled Cyrus's ankles, broken free of the wall but clinking at each step. He spread feet. Shoulder width, anchoring. Law did. Pestilence did worse. Town's under quarantine. Turn around. Vestman's grin widened. We like plague towns. Easier pickings. He raised rifle, level with Cyrus's heart. Marigold's breath hitched. She felt every thud of her racing pulse echo through Caleb and Rosamond, their fragile bodies pressed snug within sling cloth. The twin hearts hammered as if answering. The war drum outside. She scanned the boardwalk, empty save for overturned water barrels and a scattering of discarded pews that had served as impromptu stretchers. Everyone else cowered behind doorframes, drenched in terror or delirium. Leland vaulted the steps, revolver drawn. His saturated coat flapped open to reveal blood-flecked shirt, sleeves rolled above bruised forearms. He took one look at Cyrus facing 12 rifles alone and cursed softly. "Mari, inside now." She shook her head. "If he falls, they breach before you reload." Thunder rolled no storm, but the distant echo of gunfire from some forgotten canyon. The Skullsman's horses sidestepped, skittish. "Doctor!" Pastor Everett's tremulous baritone sounded behind them. The preacher marched from the church doorway, white sash strapped across mouth and nose. In his hands sagged an enormous processional cross, its bronze corpus battered but solid. "We stand together by God." His knuckles paled against the rough timber. Prudence Thornberry followed, gaunt yet upright despite fever sheen. She carried the bird gun. Patience limped beside her, supporting Ely, now largely recovered, who clutched Burwell's old Winchester. They formed a ragged line behind Cyrus. The Skullsman exchanged glances. Puzzled by the town's patchwork militia. Vest man barked, "Step aside, sinners, and we might leave a few of you breathing." Cyrus spat. "Sinners know each other by smell, friend, and you reek worse than me on my worst day." He pumped shotgun again for emphasis. The leader shrugged, squeezed trigger. Cyrus dropped flat. The rifle cracked. A slug whined over his crouched frame, shattering the infirmary sign behind. Leland fired back, grazing Vest man's shoulder. Gunfire erupted down the line. 16, 18 dissonant blasts. Pastor Everett knelt behind the cross, murmuring Psalm 46 while splinters rained around him. Ely stitched 2 accurate shots, downing a rider whose mount bolted, screaming. Marigold ducked into the lee of a rain barrel, hands covering twins' heads. Dust spurted inches from her boots. She felt muted terror but sharper clarity, every sense drawn taut. One Skullsman circled behind feed store, flanking. Marigold spotted him between slats, lanky, scarred, clubbing his horse toward the serum. "Crate! Left flank!" she screamed, but Cyrus already saw. From prone he swung shotgun, fired. Buckshot ripped the rider off his saddle. The horse shrieked, cartwheeled, crashed against depot stairs. The crate skidded, lid buckling. A vial clinked loose, rolling into the street. Blood misted fine in morning light. The firefight escalated. Cyrus crawled to a watering trough, reloaded. Leland fired methodically until his cylinder emptied. Ducked to thumb cartridges from coat pocket. A single bullet tumbled into mud. "Damn," he muttered, glancing to Mari. She answered by yanking spare rounds from Burwell's belt, tied around her hip and sliding them across boards. Prudence shrieked. Her bird gun jammed. Vest man spotted opening, spurred forward, brandishing a hatchet. Pastor Everett stepped into path, raised cross like a battering ram. Wood and flesh collided. The cross shattered, but so did Vest man's jaw. He reeled. Cyrus's buckshot ended him. 3 riders wheeled, corralling, but thunder boomed anew from west this time. All eyes turned. Over the hill thundered cavalry, not soldiers, but ranchers. Sabatini's surviving drovers, Whitlow driving. His steam tractor outfitted with scythe blades, Chun laundry workers wielding flat iron slings. Behind them, townsfolk well enough to ride perched, wobbling on mules, brandishing pitchforks. A raw howl rose among them. The Skullsman's nerves snapped. Shots grew wild. Horses spun. 2 bandits fled north across scrub. Others scattered through alleys, leaving dust and panic. Cyrus hobbled after nearest, but ankle chains slowed him. Ely sprinted ahead, tripped a fleeing outlaw with rifle butt. Hog tied him with borrowed sash. Leland lowered revolver. Sweat and rainwater streaked his face. He locked eyes with Mari. Relief crashed between them, but battle wasn't finished. A lone scullsman dragged himself toward the serum crate, blood spurting from thigh. Marigold saw him first, shouted. Too late. He yanked pin on dynamite bundle strapped under his vest last spiteful act. Leland bellowed, "Down!" and launched. Himself at Mari, covering twins, Cyrus hurled shotgun. It clipped Bandit's wrist, throwing aim. The stick arced sideways, landed against depot wall. Time's slowed fuse sputtered. Pastor Everett, wounded arm dangling, waded into smoke. He scooped the explosive with his good hand and dashed for the livestock pens behind depot. Goat bleats rose. He hurled bundle into the empty west corral and dove. The blast ripped earth. Shockwave fluttered every banner in town. Dust geysered. High rain debris. The serum crate rocked but didn't breach. Glass shattered along storefronts. When dust cleared, Everett lay still. Leland sprinted, knelt, fingers at carotid. Beat faint but present. Townsfolk swarmed, hauling preacher onto door plank dot. Meanwhile Cyrus retrieved fallen hatchet, severed his ankle chain. He approached Mari, eyes downcast. Cost me a cousin to make peace, but maybe saved a preacher. She studied him. You! Keep earning breaths. He managed wan grin, then hobbled off to round prisoners. The siege ended by high sun. 5 scullsmen dead, 4 captured, 2 escaped bleeding toward desert. Ranchers pressed survivors into coop behind saloon. Prudence tended Everett's arm, her own fever forgotten. Eli hefted the serum crate into infirmary. Leland pried lid inside nested 20 ampules, shimmering amber. A typed sheet listed dosage, extraction date, side effects, experimental. Rift Valley strain antiserum. He exhaled gratitude. Marigold moved to prepare syringes. She wryly observed, "Miracle boxed in iron. Miracle wearing thin," Leland replied. "But enough to treat severe cases." His smile fissured into. "A yawn. Need sleep," he swayed. She caught his shoulders. "Lie down. Town can last an hour." She coaxed him onto cot, tucked blanket. Lines of exhaustion etched his face, stubble smudged jaw. She traced fingertip across worry furrows until his lashes lowered. Her own bones ached, but tasks waited. She supervised new volunteers, diluted. Goat milk charted symptoms on blood-spattered ledger sheets. Every so often she checked twins' color improving, cheeks plumping. Late afternoon thunderheads massed again. Heat broke. The world smelled of ozone and wet sage. Cyrus approached porch, hat in hand, wrists red raw now free of cuffs. "I'll fix your fence tomorrow," he said. "And replace sign I shot." Marigold folded arms. "What about facing judge for crimes?" He met her gaze steady, resigned. "I won't run. Burwell's gone, so I'll answer to townsfolk. Start with latrine duty." "Town votes at dusk," she said, voice gentler. "I'll speak truth of today." Rain began a slow, forgiving patter. Night crept, but no new fever cases emerged. Those dosed with serum stabilized. Others showed merciful plateau. Leland awoke near midnight, found Marigold asleep on stool, twins between them. He stroked damp curl from her brow. In flicker of kerosene lamp he saw all he'd fought for distilled in her weary face. He rose quietly, fetched pocket Bible, and scribbled lines on flyleaf. *I, Leland March, take you Marigold Bennett. He practiced vow beneath his breath. Voice nearly breaking. Outside, moon peered between ragged clouds, illuminating Redfern scars. Bullet-pocked boards, burned rail yard, banners still fluttering. But also signs of rebirth. Goats munching straw. Whitlow's tractor pumping clean water from new well. Townsfolk singing low from porches, their lullaby mingling with cricket song. Leland stepped onto porch. Cyrus sat on barrel scraping mud from boots. Eli leaned against post, Winchester across knees, eyes scanning horizon for return of escaped scullsmen. "Doctor," Cyrus said, surprising tenderness, "you'll marry her tomorrow?" Leland's cheeks heated. If she accept, she will. Cyrus stared into night. Seen love once, in my mother's eyes, before Blackwell men broke her spirit. I know it now when I witness. He tossed pebble into puddle. Promise me one thing, teach Caleb and Rosie kindness early. Else world poisons them as it did me. Leland nodded, throat tight. I promise. Thunder rumbled far south echo. Only, the sky, spent of wrath, rested. Dawn unveiled Redfern painted fresh, puddles reflecting rose clouds, banners down, windows propped open to let disease drift away on breeze. Someone Prudence had strung wildflowers across church eaves. Marigold awoke to Leland crouched beside cot, blue chambray shirt newly pressed. He held a posy of sage blossoms. Good morning, Mrs. Almost March. She chuckled, a sound like creek water. Good morning, Dr. Almost Bennett. He offered blossoms. Marry me today, under sunrise, before next calamity storms in. Rosamond sneezed. Caleb farted a comic squeak. Marigold kissed each brow, then looked at Leland, eyes pooling. Yes. He sagged with relief, pressing forehead to hers. The ceremony unfurled beside Cottonwood Grove, where his first wife's grave rested. Pastor Everett, arm in sling, recited vows in quavering baritone. Few enough attendees remained upright, but they formed a circle, Prudence and Patience. Widow Chun propped by laundry pole. Sabatini's drovers, Jonas pale but recovering. Eli leaning on cane, Cyrus standing at rear, hat over heart. Whitlow, in wheelchair, held pistol across knees, honor guard and deterrent. Marigold wore borrowed ivory blouse, rain-washed with thornberry lace pinned at collar. Leland donned black vest once tailored for his wedding long ago. Rosamond and Caleb slumbered in bassinet lined with goat wool, oblivious pioneers of new family. When rings slipped onto fingers, her mother's gold upon her hand, his late wife's. Silver now hers, tears blurred Marigold's vision. Pastor pronounced blessings. Thunder did not crash. Instead, meadowlarks thrilled. The congregation offered muffled cheers. Cyrus presented wooden sign he'd carved overnight. March and Bennett Infirmary Hope served here. Behind the inscription, faint bullet scars remained, sealed with lacquer reminder. And ornament both, Marigold thanked him. He dipped head. Still earning, he murmured. Feast followed thin stew, goat cheese, day-old bread, delectable banquet to survivors. Laughter felt foreign, yet exhilarating, as if muscles relearned joy. Twins were passed arm to arm, blessings sprinkled. Like confetti, even Prudence cooed, afternoon haze settled. Leland excused himself to check Patience, no new hemorrhages. Fevers ebbed. Relief fanned through him like warm wind. He returned to Grove, found Marigold beneath Cottonwood feeding Caleb. Sun filtered green gold through leaves, gilding her silhouette. He sat, leaned against trunk. Town council convenes at dusk to sentence Cyrus. Her gaze lingered on horizon. He could have fled thrice since chains broke. Instead he repaired fences, hauled water, stood witness. She turned. He saved the serum crate. Leland knotted fingers in grass. Justice requires reckoning. Yet so does mercy. She nodded, eyes bright. We speak for mercy. Dusk painted sky mauve when bell tolled. Council gathered in saloon, boards patched, lamplight gentle. Cyrus stood unshackled, head bowed. Everett opened session. Charges. Recited. Attempted murder, robbery, terror. Witness testimony. Leland, Marigold, Prudence, Eli, all confirmed past crimes. Then came new testimonies. Jonas praising Cyrus for fetching water to dying. Sabatini recounting him saving goatherd in storm. Patience whispering how he read psalms to burbling delirious children. Tension thickened. Everett addressed assembly. Scripture says justice rolls like waters. Mercy like ever-flowing stream. We must choose current. Vote wooden tokens in barrel. Results: 5 for imprisonment until circuit judge, 9 for commuted sentence to civic labor under deputy supervision. Everett announced verdict. Cyrus exhaled shudder. Tears glistened. I accept. I'll rebuild what I ruined. Applause tentative. But real, redemption publicly seated. Night deepened. Stars spilled across vault. Marigold and Leland rocked on infirmary porch, twins drowsing. Crickets sang while goat chewed cud. Far off, a coyote yee-pee-pee-ed. Marigold whispered, I dreamed of a farmhouse when I left Missouri, never pictured a war-scarred clinic in Wyoming. Yet it feels right. Leland laced fingers through hers. Home isn't place, it's people untreated. A sudden hush stilled insects' strange quiet that prickled. Leland straightened. From north, a distant rumble hooves, many. Marigold stiffened. Eli emerged from alley, face drawn. Doc Mari, you'd best step inside. 200 riders, flags of the territorial militia. They look rushed. Leland's pulse spiked. Militia here? Why? Eli shook head. Word is General Harrow's men enforcing new martial quarantine. Any settlement with plague will be burned to ground to stop spread. Marigold clasped twins to chest, terror flooding anew. Flames of boxcar flashed memory. Leland's throat tightened. Torchlight flicked on horizon. An advancing line. Hope had barely planted roots, and already war boot heels marched to trample it. The couple exchanged gaze, a silent oath. Fight again. And high above cottonwoods, first sparks of militia torches glimmered like malevolent stars. The world once more held its breath. And the world once more held its breath. A hush spread across Redfern Crossing, the kind that follows the crack of a distant tree, silent yet humming with portent. In the east, the air still smelled of ozone from the storm that had spent itself against the desert, but to the north, where the first orange pinpricks of torch fire winked into being, the wind carried a different scent altogether. Lamp oil, horses, and iron. It was the scent of war in peacetime. Authority weaponized by fear. Dr. Leland March stepped off the infirmary porch into ankle-deep puddles, water rippling around his boots. His wedding vest still bore a smear of goat milk where Rosamond had spat up earlier. It looked almost white in the moon glow, like an accidental flag of truce. Marigold watched him go, thrusting Caleb into the crook of Cyrus Blackwell's arms so she could run after her husband. She scooped up a kerosene lantern from a barrel and thrust it aloft, casting their shadows long down the empty street. Eli caught up, Winchester at the ready. I counted maybe 200 heads out there, cavalry sabers glittering. There, brimming wagons loaded with kerosene and quicklime burn teams. Leland's throat constricted. Burn teams? That's a last resort directive. They'd torch us alive to sanitize the plague, unless we convince them the outbreak's contained. Marigold finished, voice steel sharp despite exhaustion. We have serum, survivors, and a town no longer dying by inches. They need to hear that before they light a match. Cyrus jogged over with Caleb fussing in his arms, chainless ankles splashing. And if they're not here to listen? Harrow's got a reputation. Shoot first, ask the crows later. Jonas stumbled from behind the saloon, clutching the newly painted town bell rope. Signal order, Doctor? He panted. Leland closed his eyes, listening. The militia's low drum roll, maybe hoofbeats, maybe a field snare grew louder with every breath. He opened his eyes. Ring all clear. One long, two short. Then everyone able should form at the main street barricade, but unarmed. No rifles. Unless they fire first. Unarmed? Prudence Thornberry appeared, cheek sunken but chin lifted. You intend to greet armed soldiers with hymnals. With proof, Leland said, voice calm. Proof that Redfern is worth saving. 10 minutes later, the town bell tolled. One mournful brazen call. 2 brisk replies. Doors opened along Main like cautious eyelids. Survivors emerged bandaged, fever gaunt, but upright. Farmers leaned on pitchforks, ranch hands steadied. Neighbors still shaky from serum injections. Widow Chun, swaddled in a knitted shawl, carried a basket of clean linens as if presenting an offering. Whitlow sat in his steam tractor, gears clicking softly, the water tank repurposed as hand-washing station, pumping chlorinated spray. Pastor Everett, arms still in sling, stood beside the cottonwood grove, clutching the broken haft of the processional cross, now sanded smooth into a staff. Sabatini's remaining drovers held goats and calves at a safe distance. Cyrus helped Marigold secure the twins in the wicker bassinet atop an overturned crate where they could be plainly seen. Rosie and Alive Dottin behind them all, on the depot platform, shimmered the steel-bound Army serum crate, its lid proudly open to reveal the remaining vials. A lantern inside illuminated the amber liquid. Halos of gold dancing on the straw. The militia column arrived in clattering formation. Gray uniforms, battered from frontier weather, parted down the center as a wagon rolled forward, bearing an officer in a broad-brimmed hat. General Ira Harrow, mid-40s, beard trimmed to a ruthless arrowhead, eyes sharp beneath the brim. He stood before dismounting, surveying Redfern's ruined facades through field binoculars. Flanking him were two surgeons in green armbands, and behind them, soldiers hefting torches sloshing kerosene as they rode. Harrow marched until 30 paces, separated him from the town's bedraggled line. He raised a gaunted hand, the drum roll ceased. The silence felt like the world's pause before a verdict. "I am General Harrow of the Territorial Militia," he called, voice echoing off clabbered like musket fire. "By authority of the Governor, I hereby place Redfern Crossing under martial law and plague eradication protocol 9 Alpha. All civilians will relocate east of the Pecos Ridge immediately. The settlement will then be sanitized by fire." Murmurs, gasps. Marigolds. Spine chilled. She stepped forward, heartbeat booming in ears, but Leland intercepted. Squeezing her elbow, "I speak first." He raised hands, palms empty. "General Harrow," he began, projecting from diaphragm honed by years of preaching encouragement to patients. "I am Dr. Leland March, licensed physician and town health officer. I report that the hemorrhagic outbreak has been contained. No new cases in 24 hours. We possess Army anti-serum delivered today." He gestured to crate. "Mortality has stabilized. Burning the town risks unnecessary death." Harrow's eyes narrowed. "Your report contradicts telegraph dispatch from Platte Junction. Redfern fatalities mounting. Disease rampant." "That dispatch is 48 hours old," Marigold interjected, lantern tremoring in her grip. "Since then we quarantined, inoculated and treated." One of Harrow's surgeons whispered into his ear. The general motioned, and two soldiers advanced toward the line, rifles shouldered. Leland stepped aside, allowing them to inspect the open crate. The surgeon plucked a vial, read the label, sniffed contents. Satisfied, he nodded discreetly to Harrow, but the general's jaw remained set. Serum does not equate to victory. Pathogens linger in soil, structures, blood. He snapped fingers. Captain Malvern, commence perimeter blaze. Soldiers hefted torches. Gasps rippled across townsfolk. Cyrus moved instinctively, hand to revolver tucked behind belt, then froze, remembering the disarm order. Eli ground jaw, white-knuckling. Winchester he'd been ordered to keep slung muzzle down. Leland spread arms, blocking Torch's path. "Please at least examine our patients, speak with survivors. Killing us negates every quarantine principle. Burning spreads particles into wind." Harrow actually smirked. "Doctor, eradication protocol 9 Alpha is not a debate. Frontier settlements are expendable." His gaze flicked to Marigold's bassinet. "Even infants carry plague in linens." Marigold's knees buckled. Rage and terror warred. Firelight glittered on torch oil as soldiers advanced. Pastor Everett. thrust his staff into mud before Harrow. General, Ezekiel warns against shepherds who slaughter the flock they're sworn to guard. Reverend, step aside. Harrow barked. Everett remained. These souls deserve inspection, not execution. Harrow sighed. Very well. 2 hours for clinical asses. A scout thundered up, breathless. General! Telegraph from Cheyenne urgent. He handed slip. Harrow scanned. His brows met. He turned to surgeons. Report of outbreak at Pelican Gulch. 300 rail workers symptomatic. We must redeploy serum. Leland seized chance. General, we will accompany you. I'll go bring remaining doses, replicate protocols. Marigold's stomach clenched. Asterisk leave? But logic screamed. Spread cure before militia raises both towns. Harrow considered. Doctor, you'd abandon your settlement? I will preserve it by proving containment, Leland answered. Your torches become insurance rather than weapon. Harrow mulled. Finally, I accept. You ride with us in 1 hour. Bring half the anti-serum. If your town remains stable 10 days, we rescind burn order. Relief diodes flickered across faces. But for Leland, gravity set in. Leaving means trust others to keep order. He looked at Marigold, fear shown, but also understanding. I'll keep them breathing, she whispered, squeezing his hands. He kissed her forehead, then knelt to twins. Rosamond gurgled. Caleb grabbed his finger. Leland's heart cracked anew, but he pried free, whispering blessings into downy hair. Cyrus stepped forward. Doctor, go. I'll guard them till death claims me. Leland searched Cyrus's eye sincerity. Blazing, he nodded. Deputize yourself then. He turned to Marigold. If fever resurges, boil water, isolate by color code. I know, she said. Go. The militia column departed at sunrise, leaving Redfern reeling from aftershocks of near annihilation. Marigold watched until dust swallowed wagons, then inhaled steadying lungful. Behind her, townsfolk drifted to tasks repairs, tending sick, burying 2 new dead overnight. Life resumed its stubborn pulse. She carried twins into infirmary, Cyrus and Eli flanking. Inside, sunlight filtered through patched window panes, gleaming on shelves of dwindling supplies. Prudence Thornberry labored over charts, translating fever logs into neat columns. She glanced up. Doctor gone? Marigold nodded. We hold 10 days. They come, they check, they leave. Prudence adjusted spectacles. Then we best not falter. Hand me new vitals. 3 days passed. No new hemorrhages. Fever patients tapered to dull convalescence. Rainstorms returned each afternoon, rinsing dust, filling barrels, coaxing sprigs of green from cracked soil. On 4th morning, Whitlow spotted column on southern horizon, not militia, but wagons bearing church banners. Father Abraham Reyes, Jesuit from Fort Laramie Mission, had received Everett's plea by courier and brought flour, quinine, and volunteer nurses. Their arrival felt like balm. Mari supervised unloading while Cyrus strung fresh rope lines to pen goats. As she carried sacks, Pastor Everett joined. Blessing multiply, he murmured, eyes misted. Yet dusk brought unease. A rider a-dying. Skulsman escapee collapsed near rail. Eli found him, delirious. The man's right arm bore black lesions, breath stank rotten. Marigold recognized new plague. Gangrenous variant of smallpox sweeping southern territories. Panic pricked her skin. She ordered quarantine tent outside town. Reyes confirmed fear, black pox, mortality 90%. Exhaustion threatened tears, but she steadied. We isolate. Over next 48 hours, 3 townsfolk developed telltale pustules. Sabatini's foreman, a laundress, and worst patients Thornberry. Prudence wept but moved her sister to makeshift pox ward. Mari wrote frantic letter to Leland via telegraph, but line outages delayed sending. She rationed pheno, improvised calamine with goat fat and clay, enforced strict gowns. Resources dwindled. Flour stretched with ground mesquite pods. Bottles for twin feeding cracked. She recycled ink vials. Halfway through day 6, midday haze clamped heat on Redfern. Mari staggered from ward, sweat streaming. She felt faint milk supply threatened. Again, Cyrus offered canteen. She sipped. "I'm running out of strength," she whispered. He gazed at twins sleeping in shade. "When you have nothing left, you borrow from others. Lean on me." He squeezed her arm, rough palms gentle. Lightning flickered on horizon, yet another storm. That evening they convened outside infirmary. Reyes displayed map. Outbreaks marching north with migrant workers. If black pox reaches Cheyenne, catastrophe. Mari stared at lines. "We need convoy to carry serum formula," knowledge Dr. March documented. She gestured to Leland's. "Notebooks locked in strongbox. But we can't afford to send more of our own." Cyrus tapped chest. "I ride. My debt to town." Prudence shook head. "Past crimes are outweighed by today's need," Reyes interrupted. "Mercy chooses unlikely vessels." In end, Cyrus and Jonas volunteered to ride east at dawn with documents. Leaving Mari command. She spent night copying protocols by lamplight, quill scratching. Twins slept nestled at her feet. Midway through copying, fatigue blurred ink. She leaned back, rubbing eyes. The clock chimed midnight. Halfway through part 5, she realized, mind skittering with storyteller's awareness, that her life itself had become saga shared with unseen listeners. She allowed herself a half smile and whispered into the quiet, "This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe." Now back to the story. She dipped pen once more. Dawn erupted. Crimson. Cyrus mounted Jaramir's old sorrel, saddlebags bulging with journals, serum samples, letters for Leland. Jonas rode beside on mule, cranky but stalwart. Townsfolk lined street, offering bread heels, prayers, odd trinkets. Prudence pressed a silver thimble into Cyrus's palm token of absolution. He swallowed hard. Marigold handed him a sealed envelope. If Leland falls before you reach him, give him my words anyway. They're for his heart, not his ears." Cyrus touched brim. "I'll bring him home." He glanced at twins. Smiled. Their pa will see them walk. Hooves clattered east. Hours later, black clouds gathered grotesque, roiling like bruises across sky. Lightning spidered. Pastor Everett muttered omen scriptures. Mari sensed dread beyond weather. Patiences. Fever spiked. Pustules hemorrhaged. Prudence collapsed beside bedside, delirium overtaking her too. Reyes and nurses donned masks, forcing Prudence into adjacent cot. Mari's chest stabbed so much loss. Throughout day thunder boomed, but storm refused to break, heat suffocating. Goat bleats turned frantic. Horses stomped. At twilight, a scout from north galloped in, one sent previously to monitor militia progress. He slumped from saddle, clothes shredded. Militia ambushed, plague camp burned. Dr. March missing. Mari's vision tunneled. Missing? The scout coughed blood. Harrow executed towns resisting burn order. Pelican Gulch destroyed. Survivors fled south. We were overrun by pox-stricken raiders wearing torn militia coats. They took the serum. Lanterns flickered, wind whipping dust. Mari's knees buckled, but Eli caught her. She steadied, resolve forging anew through heartbreak. We hold 10-day mark without him and still face torch. Now serum gone and plague new. We are alone. Reyes murmured prayer. Widow Chun sobbed. Whitlow slammed tractor gear in frustration. Mari wiped tears. We will not falter. Lightning illuminated her face, determination carving marble. Tonight we dig trenches at North Rise, set tar pitch traps. We prepare for raiders wearing uniforms. We save Prudence and Patience or bury them with dignity. And we keep Caleb and Rosie alive. Eli raised Winchester. Orders heard. Survivors straightened. That night trench digging began. Rain finally broke, turning ground to slick clay. Mari labored shoulder to shoulder with ranch hands, hands blistering. She returned to infirmary soaked, nursed Rosie though breasts nearly dry, then brewed catnip tea for twins. She sang Lullaby Soft Horse, Angels by my window stand guard. Thee now in moonlit land, her voice cracked. She laid them down, stumbled toward door, and saw a shadow inside hallway. She froze, heart jarring. From darkness stepped a figure wet, uniform torn, beard disheveled. Leland. She gasped. Grabbed him. His skin burned feverish, eyes glazed. Mari, serum stolen. Harrow dead. I ran 40 miles. He collapsed. She screamed for Reyes. Nurses rushed. They dragged him to cot, stripped soaked shirt. Purple petechia bloomed across ribs. Hemorrhagic relapse or new pox? She fumbled, stethoscope heartbeat erratic. He clutched her wrist, voice weak. They're coming. Wearing gray, thunder boomed overhead. Hoofbeats real pounded through rain. A horn blew militia signal, or raider mimic. Town bell began clanging. Mari pressed forehead to Leland's. Tears mingled with rain on his skin. Hold on. Outside. Gunshots cracked. The trench traps had sprung. Screams echoed. Reyes shouted orders. To arms. Protect infirmary and church. Caleb wailed. Rosamond fussed. Mari straightened, wiping tears. She bound hair, snatched Burwell's revolver from shelf. She kissed Leland's brow. You brought yourself back. I'll keep you here. She tucked quilt, then marched toward door. Lightning-lit corridor. Her silhouette loomed tall, resolute. Pox, plague, militia, raiders, none would claim Redfern tonight. She stepped onto porch into sheets of rain. Revolver raised, goat bleats, blending with gunfire. And behind her, Leland whispered her name like final prayer. And beneath that storm-split sky, as torches bobbed through hazy darkness and trench fireballs ignited, Redfern once more balanced on a knife edge between extinction and impossible survival. Rain crackled on the tin awning like musket shot, each drop a tiny concussion that rattled Marigold's eardrums and turned every shadow into a phantom soldier. She stood on the plank porch, revolver steady in both hands, eyes adjusting to the chaos unfurling beyond the wavering lantern light. The barricades at the north end of Main Street, fresh trenches packed with pitch-soaked brush and lined by Whitlow's steam tractor, were aflame. The result of hastily thrown torches meant to slow whatever force now swept toward Redfern. Half the attackers were the tattered gray coats of Harrow's militia. But even from this distance, Marigold could see their gait was wrong, too loose, too desperate. The plague had hollowed them into predators rather than disciplined soldiers. Between them she caught glimpses of gaunt civilians, rail laborers, escaped convicts, starving drifters, each wielding some mismatched weapon scavenged from the dead. Cavalry lances, blacksmith hammers, sawed-off shotguns. It was a plague-born tide, held together only by the promise of medicine and whatever loot a dying town could provide. Take positions. Eli's voice roared down the street, rough as gravel and twice as heavy. He limped from house to house, banging rifle butt against shutters. Those still healthy enough to fire emerged 15, maybe 20 souls, each wrapped in rain-slicked duster or quilt, eyes burning with the kind of courage that can only exist when retreat is impossible. Lightning bloomed overhead, illuminating the battleground in stark whites and blacks. In that flash Marigold saw Pastor Everett kneeling at the trench lip, staff raised like a broken standard, lips moving in prayer that carried even under thunder. She saw Reyes's mission sisters dragging cots into the church vestibule to clear floor space for emergency triage. She saw Whitlow's tractor belching steam, blade arms lowered like an iron bull ready to gore, and then the first wave slammed into the trench. Flames whooshed as pitch ignited under the attackers' boots. Screams tore through rain, horses reared, and a spray of burning oil arced skyward when a raider kicked over a barrel used as impromptu trip mine. The conflagration lit Whitlow's weathered face in orange. He jammed the vogular lever, and the tractor lurched, sweeping its sides in a deadly semicircle that felled 2 marauders and sent the rest scrambling back. Gunfire replaced thunder. Eli, perched behind the smithy cart, fired measured shots, 1, 2, 3 each, punctuated by the clang of spent brass against cobble. Prudence Thornberry, feverish but conscious, steadied her sister's bird gun with trembling hands over the church railing, pulling the trigger every time a gray coat staggered within range. Widow Chun's laundry crew flung boiling water from iron kettles off the balcony of the boarding house, scalding any raider bold enough to vault the trench. Marigold's hands did not shake. She fired at shapes that broke through smoke toward a wagon loaded with goat milk and quinine. One figure dropped, rolled, tried to rise, only to catch a second slug through the shoulder from sugar-sweet Patience Thornberry, who despite her rising fever had slipped outside with her sister's hidden derringer. Marigold felt the recoil. Crawl up her arms, felt a pang of horror, but no hesitation. These were not travelers seeking shelter. They were locusts in human skin, and she would not let them strip bare what her husband had fought so fiercely to save. Behind her, through the infirmary doorway, she heard Leland groan low, animal, laced with pain. Reyes's voice murmured for alcohol, for more bandages. The smell of carbolic drifted out, warping with the scent of wet coal smoke. A war cry rose, a single voice, deep, guttural, followed by a new sound, the rhythmic thunk of something heavy striking timber. Marigold pivoted toward the depot, and her heart lurched. A massive figure in a charred militia overcoat advanced, wielding an 8-foot length of rail iron as a battering ram. 4 plague-burnt raiders flanked him, all bearing makeshift shields of corroded sheet metal. They marched straight toward the serum crate, still gleaming in the depot's weak lamp. Eli! Marigold shouted. They're after the medicine. But Eli was pinned, rifle jammed. He slammed the bolt futilely as 2 raiders vaulted the trench near him. Prudence's next shot missed wide, and Whitlow's tractor was mired in a growing mud pit. Marigold sprinted. Rain hammered her scalp, soaking hair through thornberry lace until every thread clung like ivy. She closed distance until the iron-wielding Titan filled her vision. The lantern behind him cast his shadow across slippery boards, an enormous, ragged silhouette bearing down on the future of Redfern. She fired once. The bullet pinged off a metal chest plate welded from a stove door, sparks arcing. He roared and swung the rail. She dove, rolling beneath uncivilized momentum. Planks exploded where she'd stood, fragments knifing her calf. She hissed, came up to knees, aimed again. A plague raider tackled her from blind side, smelling of decay. They skidded through puddle, revolver skittering away. She clawed dirt, rolled, elbowing his jaw. He snarled, hands closing on her throat. Thunder cloaked the world, but above it she heard a shotgun boom. The raider lurched sideways, half his shoulder gone. Marigold shoved corpse, coughing. Over it she saw Cyrus striding, rain running down. His hat brim, double barrel already smoking. I thought you rode east, she rasped. Did. He pumped fresh shells. Turned back when we hit militia roadblock. Jonas went on. No time, she pointed. The Titan had reached depot stairs. 2 accomplices pried at crate lid with bayonet blades. Cyrus barked a laugh. Not happening. He ran, leapt trench, closed on the brute. Shotgun thundered again, but at that angle harmless spark off armor. The Titan backhanded him with rail. Cyrus flipped, landing with teeth, rattling crunch. Marigold stood, retrieving revolver. Blood-soaked sock but leg held. She staggered after Cyrus. Inside infirmary, Leland fought delirium. Fever fire replaced rational thought. Memories blurred Sarah dying, Harrow's execution, Mari's lullaby. Through haze he heard screams. His body wanted surrender, but some stubborn thread, woven by years of frontier grit and his wife's fierce will, refused. He swung feet over cot, fell, crawled to cabinet. Weak fingers pawed until they clasped morphine vial. He smashed top, drank raw, hoping to quiet pain long enough to stand. Everything tilted, but one burning purpose steadied him. Marigold needed him. He groped for revolver holstered beneath surgical table, loaded by habit of tense nights. When he rose, doorways spun, but walls guided. He limped into hall, past rows of wounded moaning. Reyes tried to intercept. He waved her off. Cyrus pushed up on one elbow. The Titan raised rail for killing. Blow. Marigold screamed, "Stop!" and fired all remaining rounds. Bullets ricocheted, one gouging Titan's thigh. He roared, staggered, rail dropping enough that Cyrus rolled clear, but accomplices had seized serum crate, tilting vials into burlap sacks. Shatter! A bottle broke, amber liquid mixing with rainwater on planks. Put it down! Marigold advanced. Empty gun now bluff. The Titan turned, eyes feral yellow. Behind and above him, the depot lamp flickered, strobing his fevered face. He lunged. Everything slowed. She saw rust flakes flinging from iron, droplets suspended like crystal. She braced to die, but a shot cracked from behind. The Titan's helmet dented inward. He stumbled. Shot again. Helmet plate shattered, revealing brow erupted in red. Mari whipped around. Leland stood in infirmary doorway, soaked nightshirt. Plastered to fever ribs, revolver leveled. He fired third time. The Titan fell, rail clanging. But victory was hollow. One raider snatched the half-filled burlap, vaulted rail track, disappearing into storm. Whitlow's tractor broke free and pursued, but mud bog slowed chase. Mari dashed after, Cyrus limping behind. The thief darted into alley maze behind Chun Laundry. Torches tossed uncertain light, silhouettes warped. Mari followed splash prints, throat raw. She saw burlap snag on fence palings near goat pen, serum clink inside. She pushed faster, suddenly. Torchlight rushed from side, another raider swinging shovel. She ducked, shovel-skinned hair. Cyrus's boot connected with assailant's shin. Shovel wielder yelped, stumbled into goat pen, where startled Nanny rammed him back out. Cyrus tackled man, fists raining redemption. Mari seized burlap, heart pounding, intact vials inside, maybe a dozen. She clutched them to chest. Rain showed no sign of relenting. Back on Main, the tide turned. With Titanfeld and trenches ablaze, raiders broke. Some fled north across Butte. Others dropped weapons, begging quarter. Eli organized pursuit, capturing 8. Pastor Everett lowered staff, face streaked, sooty tears. Widows hugged. Thunder faded. The battle consumed 2 hours, but felt eternal. Dawn filtered lavender through ragged clouds, revealing devastation, scorched earth, broken awnings, blood mixing with pothole water to create tiny pink lakes. Yet Redfern still stood, still breathed. Mari's calf wound throbbed. Reyes stitched quickly while she addressed council convening on church steps. Cyrus stood guard. Leland collapsed but conscious on stretcher behind her. "We survived the night," she began, voice hoarse. "But half our serum is gone, supply lines severed, and a more virulent pox approaches. 10-day inspection by militia is 3 dawns away, if they come at all." Prudence, swaying with fever but lucid, whispered, "What if they burn us without?" "Check, assume us dead already?" "Then we prove life," Mari said. "We ride to their fort, deliver the survivors we captured, display containment." She looked down at Leland, eyes glassy but proud. "He cannot ride, I will lead." Gasps erupted. Reyes motioned protest. Mari raised hand. I have healed, but I am able. Cyrus will guide back trails. Eli, though wounded, will command here. Whitlow rebuilds barricades. Father Reyes continues triage. Pastor Everett leads prayers and hope. Debate swirled resources dangers. Mari listened, but mind already charted route. At last town agreed. A diplomatic caravan, Mari, Cyrus, 2 nurses, a captured but compliant raider as witness, would leave at dusk for Fort Steele, where regional command now headquartered. They would carry remaining vials, Leland's protocols, and children, because no mother could bear to leave them again. She would strap twins and cradleboard, proof of innocence. Leland grasped her wrist. "You'll need me," he rasped. "You saved us tonight," she whispered. "Now heal. Come when you can stand." He closed eyes, tears sliding. Sun climbed. Drying mud. Mari packed medical satchel, goat-hide blanket, twin cradleboard. Jonas had woven en route east. She rehearsed speech for army doctors. She prayed. Caleb cooed. Rosie giggled first time. Afternoon. Jonas returned, eyes hollow. "Report, Cheyenne Hospital bombarded with pox patients. But I delivered letters." Territorial governor granted hearing at Fort Steele. He slumped unconscious. Good news, but timeline shrank. Governor leaving in 2 days. The caravan must depart immediately. Twilight shimmered violet when Mari swung onto Jeremir's chestnut mare, a steady creature who'd survived the plague of bullets and storms. Twins secured on her back, their weight both anchor and horizon. Cyrus rode flank, shotgun across lap, wearing freshly laundered shirt patched by Chun seamstresses. Nurse Elena Cantwell guided supply mule. The captured raider name revealed as Tobias rode with wrists tied to saddle horn, old kneaded bread in pocket, promise of amnesty in ears. Eli saluted as gate opened. Leland leaned on Reyes's shoulder, still fevered but bandaged, forcing smile that crinkled eyes. Mari met his gaze under brim of hat. No words needed. Promise glowed between souls. Whitlow rang bell once farewell. The party rode into encroaching dusk, hooves muffled by soft earth, lantern bobbing. Thunder rumbled one last warning before hills swallowed them. Miles out, moonless dark fell, but road glimmered faint where wagon wheels had churned clay into pale paste. Cyrus led along creek bed to avoid bandit remnants. He hummed lullaby. Marigold once sang in saloon after siege. Eerie but comforting among junipers. Hours passed. Twins slept. Tobias muttered delirious fragments about Crimson Fort and Gideon, an unseen leader orchestrating plague raids. Cyrus prodded. But man lapsed into silence. Near midnight stars vanished cloud cover, thickening like bruise. Wind shifted cool, carrying stench of smoke. Cresting a ridge they saw valley below, dozens of campfires flickering, silhouettes of tents. A banner snapped white skull on black. Cyrus cursed. Skullsmen regroup. Mari's stomach dropped. The valley lay directly on road to Steele. Detour cost half a day they didn't have. She studied ridge, brain whirring. They could risk night ride through canyon to West Narrow, but if ambush lay there, or attempt stealth along tree line and hope fires mask their presence. Tobias stirred, eyes reflecting flames. He hissed, "That there is Gideon's camp. He hunts serum. If he sees you, he'll take babes, use them as barter or bait." Mari felt bile. "Is their path unseen?" Tobias nodded toward ravine fissuring hillside. Old mining track, steep, loose slate, but it bypasses. Cyrus eyed prisoner. "Why help?" he shrugged, coughing. "Raids were for food at first. Gideon twisted us. If there's redemption like your preacher says, maybe I stake claim." Mari considered. Storm lightning flickered. Decision had to be now. "We take mine track," she decided. "Lead us." Cyrus cut Tobias's wrist rope, left ankle bound. They dismounted, leading horses into mouth of ravine where darkness swallowed. Echoes, Slippery scree shifted underfoot. Twins stirred but quieted with hum. Every step risks slide to valley where fires glowed ominous. Thunder cracked overhead, rain starting anew. Halfway down slope, slate gave out beneath Tobias. He slid, yanking horse sidelong. Stones cascaded, clattering into abyss. Raiders' camp fell, silent fires burning, but no music now. Torches lifted. Shouts drifted. Cyrus pulled reins, saving horse. But crash had betrayed them. Torchlights multiplied, Ant Hill agitated. Riders mounted. Mari whispered prayer, urged party forward, but path narrowed, rain slicked rock. She felt dread seep. They'd be trapped in ravine mouth when pursuers reached. Ridge. Behind, hooves thundered, skullsmen racing to intercept. They reached abandoned mine entrance, timbers rotten. Inside, yawning blackness offered concealment. In, Mari hissed. They ducked under beam just as first raiders crested slope, torches flickering. Dark swallowed them. Twins whimpered. Cyrus struck match behind shielded hand, revealing tunnel. Sloping deep. Wood supports creaked in wind gust. Outside, raiders dismounted, voices echoing. Find them. Gideon wants babes. Mari's blood ran ice. Tunnel might collapse, but outside guaranteed capture. She motioned descent. They slid into mine, moist air, fetid with years-old rot, hugged faces. Drips echoed. Cyrus found lantern and wick in abandoned cart, lit with scarce match. Faint glow revealed crossroads of shafts. Tobias limped, ankle raw. Left tunnel emerges near Foothill Springs, if beams hold. Crash above raiders forcing entry. Mari hefted twins closer, heart hammering. They followed Tobias, shaft narrowed, beams sagging. Groans vibrated. Behind them, shouts spilled into darkness. Torchlight bobbed. Shotgun blast thundered. Cyrus fired toward voices, roared deafening. Splinters rained. Tunnel shook. Dust plumed. Timber cracked with gunshot echo. Mari screamed, "Run!" They sprinted deeper as ceiling collapsed behind timbers snapping. Rocks thundering, ceiling shaft with avalanche of shale. Silence after dust swirl. Cyrus coughed, lantern dimming. They were sealed inside. Air stank. Tunnel ahead unknown. No going back. Mari steadied breath, stroking infants. She met Cyrus's lamp-lit gaze, mixture of fear and determination. "We keep moving," she said. But as they turned, a low moan drifted from darkness ahead, deep, almost inhuman. Lantern burned brighter, revealing markings on wall, crude. Glyphs of skull and serpent, fresh charred into wood. Tobias paled. "This mine ain't abandoned. Gideon's been using it." A figure stepped into light down shaft, tall, draped in patchwork cloak of gray coats, face hidden behind bleached wolf skull. In one hand he held lantern, in other a cavalry saber stained dark. Gideon. Lightning flash outside penetrated cracks, backlighting monstrous silhouette. He spoke, voice resonant, calm. "Thank you for delivering the infants and the serum. The rail could not, but Providence has guided you here." Mari raised revolver but empty. Cyrus aimed shotgun, only one shell. He hissed, "Step aside or—" "I cave this tunnel," Gideon chuckled, stepping closer. Dozens of faint footfalls behind him, his elite guard. Mari's heart pounded. Twins awoke crying. Gideon's skull mask tilted, sniffing air. "New life," he murmured. "A fitting sacrifice to cleanse plague." Cyrus cocked hammer. Lantern flickered, and deep overhead, another thunder rumble shook earth, timbers groaning. Dust raining. Tunnel seemed poised on precipice of burial. Mari tightened grip on cradleboard. Back pressed to cold slate, eyes lock in on Gideon's hollow sockets. The world held its breath once more, poised between collapse and confrontation, between the fragile flicker of two infants and the devouring darkness of fanatic despair. And the world held its breath. Time inside Gideon's lair stretched, each heartbeat suspended, like a drop of water clinging to a stalactite. Marigold Bennett could feel her pulse in her ears, in her wounded calf, in the tiny limbs pressed to her spine where Caleb and Rosamond whimpered. Her revolver lay useless, empty chambers gaping like broken teeth, but she kept it leveled all the same, a talisman of intent, if not function. Beside her, Cyrus Blackwell's shotgun hovered barrel level with Gideon's breastbone. One shell left, but the outlaw's posture told Gideon this single scatter of lead might very well be enough. The man in the wolf skull mask regarded them with chilling leisure. Lantern light shimmered off the bleached bone, off the stitched-together militia jackets fluttering like a tattered prophet's robe. Behind him, half-seen shapes closed ranks guards and respirators cobbled from stovepipe and horse leather, eyes glinting fever-bright above makeshift filter cloth. And beyond them, deeper in the mine's lungs, grew a drone of coughs, a congregation of the plague, stricken, packed like cordwood in shadows, worshipping the promise of stolen serum. Gideon set the lantern on a crate, bathing the claustrophobic tunnel in a honeyed glow. "You brought two gifts," he said, voice resounding, "the sovereign cure and the song of new life." "Step back," Cyrus growled, sounding very much like the gunslinger he once was. "You'll breathe gunfire 'stead of song." Gideon sked. "Violence from one seeking redemption?" "I know you, Blackwell." He tilted skull. "You murdered innocents in Cedar Ridge." Cyrus flinched. Marigold felt it ripple through him, a tremor of guilt he had knotted into a rope to pull himself forward. "I'm done murdering," he answered, voice low. "But I will shoot a monster to save children." Gideon spread arms. "Monster or physician of a sick world? Fever is nature's way of cauterizing rot. I merely aid the burn." Marigold swallowed bile. "You call slaughter purification?" He inclined skull toward the cradleboard. "Those infants immune by chance or carriers of stronger seed?" "We shall see." Cyrus's thumb quivered on hammer. But before tension snapped, a low rumble rolled through stone. Dust trickled from beams overhead, aftershock of the earlier collapse. The structure groaned, timbers warping like ribs of a dying beast. Gideon's eyes flicked upward. His guards shifted uneasily. In that moment, Marigold sensed opportunity, the mine itself an ally ready to devour invaders and protect what remained of hope if triggered just right. She slid gaze to Cyrus, gave the smallest nod. He understood, shifted weight subtly heel, probing soft slate near support post. One blast from shotgun could bring roof down between them and Gideon burying both perhaps, but perhaps carving path for escape. But the twins. She felt Rosamond's breath against shoulder, soft as moth wings, Caleb's fist clutching her braid. Could she gamble their lives on rockfall? No. Instead, she spoke. "You want serum? Take a dose now. Prove your faith. Then let the sick go." "Free." Gideon laughed a cavernous echo. "I need not serum. I host the fever and remain unscathed." He pulled glove, slicing forearm with saber's edge. Blood oozed. "See? Infection never claimed me. I am chosen vessel." Perhaps it was true, or perhaps mania blinded him to slow-forming lesions. Either way, his hubris sparked an idea. Marigold eased burlap satchel from shoulder, displaying intact vials. "Then you don't mind if I destroy these? If plague is purifier, curing it would betray your gospel." Gideon's head tilted sharply. Guards murmured. He stepped closer, saber lowering. "You would doom your own town?" "My town survives on will, not vials," she replied. "But it would deny you power." She raised vial between thumb and forefinger, poised to smash against wall. Gideon hissed. "Stop!" Cyrus edged sideways, eyes tracking beams. Gideon's snarl fixed on the serum, his zealotry exposed as domination, masked as doctrine. He needed the cure to hold sway over his fevered flock. Marigold pushed. "Release us. Let us carry 2 infants and 1 vial to Fort Steele. The rest you keep." "No," Gideon snapped. The infants stay, symbols of rebirth. Marigold's stomach lurched, symbols. He lifted saber, it stained. Steel catching lamplight, blood baptism. The old world ends tonight. Cyrus cocked hammer with audible click. Over my corpse. Gideon's eyes burned. Accepted. He thrust saber. Cyrus fired. The shell roared, muzzle flare carving. Straubing chiaroscuro. Buckshot slammed Gideon's chest, hurling him back into guards. One fell screaming. Lantern overturned. Oil splashing flame onto broken crates. Fire whooshed up support beam. Chaos ignited. Guards fired rusty colts, sparks ricocheted. Cyrus yanked. Marigold into side shaft. Lead stung air where her head had been. She clutched twins, sprinted through smoke. Tobias and Nurse Elena grabbing satchel and lantern shards. Behind, timber crackled as flame licked pitch-soaked beams. The mine began collapsing not in one dramatic roar, but in a succession of pops. And groans, like a giant jaw chewing itself. They ran blind, lanterns smashed, darkness nearly absolute. Caleb shrieked. Rosamond wailed. Cyrus led by intuition, fingers brushing right-hand wall. Tobias lagged, coughing blood. They passed side alcove filled with crates, dynamite sticks stamped Union Pacific. Cyrus cursed. Gideon's next sermon. Marigold's boots slipped on slick clay. Air thickened with coal smoke. She could taste panic metal on tongue. A glow. Appeared ahead, faint blue daylight filtering through collapsed shaft. Exit. Cyrus rasped. But between them and freedom a figure rose. Gideon, coat tattered, chest bleeding but alive. Skull mask cracked, revealing fever-flush skin beneath. Saber gleamed. Cyrus raised empty shotgun. Gideon smirked, slashing. Blade hacked barrel clean off, spark showering. Cyrus stumbled. Marigold backed, pressing children to rock. Gideon stalked. Saber dripping. Mother of future, he crooned. Give unto me. Tobias staggered to flank, swinging pickaxe scavenged earlier. Gideon parried, driving pick into wall. With other hand he punched Tobias. The raider crumpled. Nurse Elena hurled broken lantern. Gideon batted aside, but oil splattered coat. Flame. Raced cloth. He roared, batting fire. Opportunity. Marigold drew old surgical scalpel from apron gift from Leland first night of fever. She squared shoulders. Touch them and die. Gideon laughed through flames, lunged. She sidestepped, slashed saber arm. Blood sprayed. He howled, turning. Cyrus tackled from side, both crashing into crate of dynamite. Slats burst, sticks rolling. Fire-kissed fuse. Cyrus locked eyes with Mari's silent command. Asterisk run. She hesitated, he. Mouth go. She sprinted toward daylight, children bouncing. Elena dragged Tobias. Behind, Cyrus grappled Gideon near crate, trying to quench fuse. Sparks hissed, racing. Marigold burst from mine mouth into cold dawn. Rain had ceased, sky silvered. She slid down embankment, landing on shale. Elena and Tobias tumbled after, a thunder not of sky but earth shook valley. The mine entrance belched fire, stones, and a shockwave that flung them into sagebrush. A plume rose, carving sunrise with ash. Silence followed, horrid, thick, final. Marigold scrambled up slope, screaming, Cyrus. But entrance gone collapsed. Under tons of shale. Fire flickered inside like a dying candle. Tears blurred world. She pressed face to cradleboard. Twins still alive, wailing. She kissed foreheads, sobbing for outlaw who had paid debt in full. Elena coughed beside her. Tobias lay still. She checked pulse faint. She bound wounds quickly. Cries rose from Valley Skullsman camp in turmoil as mine explosion echoed. She saw figures running, some aflame, others dropping weapons. Without their prophet, cohesion shattered. Good doc. She wiped cheeks, shoulders squaring. We must move. They skirted valley, traveling through ridges. By noon, Fort Steele's watchtower came into view, palisade of fresh timber, flags drooping damp, cannons pointed outward. But gates were closed, guards wary of any traveler. Marigold trudged a drawbridge, lifted both hands though muscles trembled. "Doctor's envoy from Redfern Crossing," she shouted, with serum and proof of containment. Soldiers leveled rifles until Nurse Alina brandished medical satchel, glass, vials glinting. An officer ordered gate lifted. Inside fort yard, healthy orderlies rushed. Governor Warren himself appeared, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. Mari knelt though legs buckled. Outbreak heading north. Raiders wearing militia colors ambush convoys. General Harrow dead, her voice fractured. "We carry last of serum and witness." She gestured to Tobias, bound but conscious. A surge brought them into infirmary, a swept-clean barracks brimming with cots. Surgeons whisked serum to ice chest. Another carried twins for examination. Mari followed like tether, refusing separation. More than arm's length. Caleb sneezed. Rosamond stared wide-eyed at white-coated men. Governor Warren interviewed her while medics tended children. She recounted every siege, every quarantine, Gideon's cult. Elena corroborated. Tobias, shaking, testified to Harrow's massacre and Gideon's plan, begged clemency. By dusk, Warren convened officers. Mari sat outside infirmary door, rocking twins, exhaustion carved into bones. Rain started again, soft, rhythmic. She dozed. She woke to voice she feared never to hear again, Marigold. Leland stood in lamplight, pallid but upright, arm in sling, escorted by cavalrymen. He'd ridden hell. That once fever broke, Whitlow's tractor whistle start had signaled his return. Hours after her departure, and he'd followed tracks. She rose, tears immediate. They collided in embrace, gentle yet fierce, infants tucked between. His fever gone but eyes rimmed red. He kissed her where chapped lips, whispered apologies, thanks, love declarations. Tears mixing, Governor Warren approached quietly. "Dr. March, your wife saved this territory. Without the serum, we'd face collapse." He saluted. Leland held Mari's gaze. "She saves me daily." Warren continued. "Fort Steele will dispatch relief to Redfern at first light. Marshal Byrne order rescinded. As for you two, rest this night. The West still needs healers." Morning. Light spilled gold across parade ground. Supply wagons laden with flour, medicine, and bedding queued behind cavalry escort, bound for Redfern. Leland and Marigold, infants swaddled, mounted fresh horses. Nurse Elena rode with them, promotion to chief aide. Tobias, pardoned, chose to serve as driver, redemption path commencing. Governor Warren handed Leland sealed decree. Redfern Crossing, designated regional medical outpost under Dr. March and Nurse Bennett March, with monthly supply stipend. They departed to cheers. On ridge outside fort, Mari paused. She looked east toward collapsed mine where Cyrus rested. She murmured farewell, promising his name would be spoken with gratitude at every harvest. She slipped thornberry thimble from pocket, placing on cairn of stones at trail marker. Ride to Redfern took 3 days but felt less. At town gate, bell pealed wild. Children fever free raced. Whitlow fired tractor whistle. Pastor Everett cried, "The prodigal returns." Prudence, pale but standing, embraced sister alive. Reyes bowed head in prayer of completion. Eli saluted governor's courier. Supplies offloaded. Anvil clang sounded future rising. Leland dismounted, lifting Rosie to sky. Townsfolk cheered. Marigold slid from saddle, calf scar splitting but heart soaring. She stepped onto porch of their infirmary. New sign glimmered. Hope served here. She inhaled scent of wet sage mingling with lye soap and lavender. The smell of battles. One night fell. Lanterns glowed along Main, not as signals of siege, but as constellations of community. Music Grace's long silent piano drifted from repaired saloon, chords shaky but joyous. People danced, wept, laughed. Marigold stood at window feeding. Twins, thoughts drifting to Missouri, to trains that deliver destiny, to storms that forge steel. Leland wrapped arms around her waist, chin resting on shoulder. "We're alive," he whispered. "More than alive," she answered. "We are beginning." Outside, Pastor Everett rang bell thrice, signifying not warning but celebration. Stars emerged, unmarred by smoke for first time in weeks. Marigold kissed twins goodnight, laid them in crib built by Sabatini's carpenters from leftover pew wood. Each slat carved with initials of townsfolk who'd survived plague. She returned to porch where Leland awaited. They sat on rocker, hands intertwined, listening to lullaby of cicadas. "You think trouble's truly over?" he asked. She smiled, fatigue softening features. "Trouble is life's midwife," she said. "But we learn to breathe through." "Labor," he chuckled. "You always have perfect metaphor." She rested head on his shoulder. "Because I lived it." They watched moon climb, silvering desert beyond. Somewhere goats bleated, healthy and ornery. A breeze wandered by, carrying faint baby giggles from nursery. Marigold closed eyes, exhaling a prayer of thanks for a widowed doctor who'd proposed on sight, for twins who forged alliance of strangers, for a town forgotten by maps but stitched forever into legend. And as the night cradled Redfern in tender darkness, she let herself believe the worst was past, that tomorrow's dawn would bring milk-sweet air, unhurried breakfasts, and the ordinary miracles of children learning to crawl across clinic floors. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.